The Heavenly Warriors organization is the largest martial arts association in this world, with serious authority in the field of wushu. It attracts the close attention of the masses. This group hides a lot of extraordinary martial arts and unknown secrets. However, for ordinary people this is just an opportunity to earn their living. In our time, which is quite difficult for the possibility of working in this field, this huge palace for fist fights is truly the best place for professional activities. Here they don't ask where you come from. If you have the abilities, then there will be a place for you in this organization. And even if you don't succeed in becoming a professional boxer, you still have the opportunity to become a partner. Right now, in the training ring, a professional fighter was preparing for his fight. His sparring partner was a young guy. The fight had been going on for quite some time. The man's entire face was covered with sweat. It was clear that he was trying his best. His partner also looked pretty tired, but he couldn't be distracted for even a second. A missed shot could end badly. The boxer continued to attack with a series of powerful attacks, and the guy deftly parried these blows with his special gloves. Sometimes he even had to dodge. Although this sparring partner was not like the others, it was hard to deny that he was very good at it, and quite pleasant to work with. But the boxer still has quite a lot of strength left. He manages to continue to actively put pressure on his opponent in the ring. Several people standing behind the ring were surprised by the way these two moved. They fought so fiercely, as if it was a world title fight. Someone from the crowd shouted to a guy named Chen that he had very little time left to hold out. There were only 20 seconds left until the end of the fight. His strength was already running out, but he was not going to give up at the very end. With the last of his strength, the guy continued to hold his hands in front of him. It was not for nothing that the hero was respected by those around him. If an ordinary martial arts lover had been pitted against such a strong fighter, he would have been lying on the floor a long time ago. But it is worth noting that Chen was certainly not an ordinary amateur, because it was not for nothing that he was the champion sparring partner. At first glance, you couldn't tell that he had a rather low rank. The gym captain calmly watched both of them and smoked a cigarette. At first glance it might seem that he was completely indifferent to what was happening. Meanwhile, the fight continued. There were literally a couple of seconds left until the end of the round, but in this sport it was impossible to loosen your grip even for a moment. Suddenly the gong rang, which meant that the confrontation was over. Both fighters showed their best side and gave it their all. The man even regretted that the time ran out so quickly, because the last few blows, in his opinion, turned out to be very weak. Chen told him that his last few strikes had been too hasty and there might be adverse consequences due to this. A few minutes later the guy went to the locker room. After such a fight he needed to recover. A local doctor helped him with this. This gloved fighter was very strong, but in boxing there is no such thing as injury-free. If you miss a punch, then there is no point in blaming anyone but yourself. If this happens, then you are simply not good enough. The guy had a cut on his face. He needed a plaster, but the doctor didn't have one, and the hero told him that he had once seen the necessary thing in one of the lockers. This patch was left there by an injured boxer last month. As it turned out, Chen had an exceptional memory, because he remembered such a little thing. The doctor asked him why he dropped out of school, because the hero could easily enter a good university, and then he would not have to fight for pennies and work for his uncle. But the guy didn't answer anything. His face looked somehow sad. The man thought that maybe he had said something wrong. The doctor went on to say that he also really wanted to become a boxer, but unfortunately his health does not allow this. But if you become a professional fighter, then you are not far from the rank of captain. Chen believed that he himself would never become a captain, but the man supported him and said that he had potential. Their conversation was overheard by the current captain. These two also discussed the current captain. In their opinion he was completely useless. He only had thoughts of his own benefit in his head. If it weren't for him, then their friend Xiaobo would be healthy now, but he was injured due to the fact that they did not have normal ammunition for sparring. It would be much better if another person took the role of team captain. After all, their gym was full of worthy fighters. Meanwhile, night has fallen on the street. The hero needs to hurry home, otherwise his family will start to worry. But first he needs to go to the pharmacy. The owner of this place was an elderly man. He immediately recognized Chen and greeted him. The grandfather had known the guy for a long time. He knew that his sister was sick. He quickly collected all the necessary medicines in a bag and wished the girl to get well quickly. Within a few minutes the hero was at home. his sister was watching TV at that time, and as soon as she heard the door open, she immediately ran to the entrance. She rushed at her brother with a joyful face and said that she missed her very much, he should spend more time at home, and Chen reminded her that she shouldn't jump like that. How many times should she repeat it? The girl said that she would cook dinner today, so the guy immediately went to his room to rest for a while. He was so tired that he fell on his bed without even taking off his clothes. The room was hung with posters of his favorite fighters. These were both real people and characters from games and comics. He didn't even have the strength to take off his slippers properly, so he simply kicked them off his feet while already lying on the bed. After this, snoring was heard. It turned out that the hero fell asleep in just a few seconds. He devoted himself to his favorite work to the fullest. When Chen had almost fallen into deep sleep, he continued to think only about how to improve his fist-fighting technique and analyzed various tactics. Further events take us many years ago. There was heavy snow on the street, and a girl was walking along the road with a small child in her arms. Suddenly, a young mother notices that some cruel person just threw out a small child on the side of the road. The boy was wrapped in a blanket and lying in a cardboard box. She makes a decision without hesitation and takes the baby with her, because she really felt sorry for him. Any normal person would have done the same thing. The girl moved on with 2 children in her arms. Women passing by noticed her. They recognized her. 2 gossips were interested in what they saw, where she got her second child, and did this stupid girl really have another one? There had been bad rumors about her for a long time. Her father kicked the girl out of the house, because it was a great shame that she became pregnant before the wedding. But the young mother did not care about this gossip. She did not care what others said. She would definitely raise this boy as her own son and put him on his feet. Soon the children grew up and became a real family. One day the girl happily ran to her mother to show off her test score. The woman reminded her that her health was rather poor, and she should not run around like she was scalded and scream with all her might. Her name was Linka. She was holding her brother's exam paper in her hands. She really wanted to show that he managed to score the maximum points. But the boy himself was shy. He didn't understand why his little sister was bragging about someone else's grade, and besides, it wasn't such a big achievement. But the girl didn't think so at all. In her opinion, they should talk about it on every corner, because she had never managed to score such a high score. After that, her mother hit her on the head and noticed that it would be better for her to follow the example of her elder, instead of all these ideas. In fact, the woman was very proud of her son. He studied very well, and in the future he would definitely become an outstanding person. No one would look down on him. Chen felt a little awkward. He never liked being praised, but still he was very pleased that he had someone who saw his achievements. Suddenly the hero opened his eyes. It turned out it was just a dream in which he was replaying his old happy memories. And now the guy saw a familiar ceiling in front of him. Because of what he saw in his dream, he wondered whether he was doing the right thing when he exchanged the chance to go to college for a passion for martial arts. Meanwhile, work was in full swing in the kitchen. Linka was almost finished with dinner. Her brother should hurry if he wants something left for him. The girl looked happy. She asked her brother if he slept well and if everything was okay with him. He replied that everything was fine. Chen smelled a pleasant aroma and immediately woke up, but he had to wait a little longer. The food would be ready very soon. The hero tried a small piece with chopsticks, and the girl was looking forward to his assessment. She put all her love into this dish. And it really was very tasty. It couldn't have been otherwise, because when you do something with great love, it will definitely work out. The guy at that moment was thinking about one thing that he had never told anyone. In fact, Chen sometimes hears a voice in his head. It is this feature that helps him in his studies. To be honest, just so that his mother wouldn't worry about it, he never told her about it, although sometimes he really wanted to. He often thought that with the help of this voice he had a good chance of entering a good university, and after that finding a good job. This would allow him and his loved ones to get out of the poverty in which they lived for many years, because only their mother cared for them. Something made its own adjustments. Entering a university in a prestigious profession would take too much time. First you need to find a way to cure Linka. First of all, the hero went to the gym for morning training. There were already several people there besides him, and his friend Wei was also present there. He was the first to greet Chen. His face looked a little worried. The guy immediately noticed this, but did not go into details. The hero went to the locker room, but the strangeness did not end there. he notices his friend who was very badly beaten. As it turned out, today someone came to the hall who was not happy to see Chen. He should be more careful. The nickname Golden Pear played a cruel joke on him. After that, the captain immediately approached him. The man said that he was their main strength in the second group, because not everyone can become a sparring partner of a gold medalist. Usually boxers like him carefully choose boxers, because they can be easily injured, but the guy was never afraid and even became a partner of the champion. Therefore, the captain motions him back and tells him to quickly go to the fourth ring. Chen was surprised why he had to go there. But the man told the hero to quickly do what he was asked to do. He should go to this damn ring as quickly as possible, because his opponent was already waiting for him there. It was strange, because this man had crippled Xiaobo last month. He was a boxer 2 ranks higher than the hero, so why did they put them together? Meanwhile, the boxer's brother began to freak out. He was tired of this talk. Did they really want his brother to die here from boredom? The fighter's name was Mad Dog, and the second was Iron Wolf. The captain hastened to reassure him. After all, the guy was nicknamed the Golden Pear for a reason. Out of every 10 bikers who trained with him, 8 or 9 consistently improved their results. It will be useful for both of them to meet in the ring, and the man also promises Chen that in the middle of the month he will definitely give him a bonus. Before getting up, the guy clarified whether his opponent would strictly follow all the rules of the training fight. Attacks to the torso and throat are not allowed. A tired sparring partner may demand that the fight be stopped. The captain promised him that everything would be according to the rules. Because there were a lot of people here, everyone would see if something went wrong. In the end, the hero puts on his gloves and gets ready to go out. The training is limited in time for half an hour. The Mad Dog asked if he is the one everyone calls the champion bag. He heard that Chen is pretty good, but the guy was focused on something else. This man was clearly looking for a partner for a reason, and in order to assert himself at the expense of others. This was certainly not for the sake of improving his skills. Suddenly, the guy's thoughts are interrupted by a powerful right hook. He only miraculously managed to block this blow, because he didn't even really prepare. The attack was so powerful that his hand immediately went numb and began to obey poorly. The Mad Dog was not even 2 ranks higher than the hero, perhaps 3 or 4. This was immediately followed by a second blow, again with the right hand. Chen managed to duck this attack. But suddenly a strong kick lands in his stomach. The hero did not expect this at all, because this fight was carried out according to the rules of training. Such actions are prohibited. Because of this, the guy flew to the other end of the ring. Is this guy really crazy? What's on his mind now? It looks like he's completely crazy. The level of power in this fight meant a lot. It was no joke. Half an hour of attacks at full force with blows of 300 kilograms threatened Chen with internal hemorrhages. This brat should have thought better before trying to take the captain's place. The man smiled and watched with pleasure. Chen said the word stop. It seems that this kick greatly disrupted his concentration. He needed time to rest. Everyone around said that the fight should be stopped, because one of the fighters had broken the rules, but the captain said that this would not happen. Does the Golden Pear really give up so easily? The Iron Wolf, with a grin on his face, justified his brother. He just simply hit this kid harder. What kind of sparring partner is this who cannot endure a little? Soon the fight continued. The man continued to throw a rapid series of blows, and the hero tried his best to dodge them. Although he succeeded in this, the difference in their strength was too great. At this rate, the Chens would not last long. The Mad Dog did not hide the pleasure on his face. He understood that if this brat missed even one direct blow, he would immediately fall. Attacks rained down like from a machine gun. The situation became more and more dangerous with every second. This can only be withstood by skill, which was honed by daily training. At some point, the man remembers the fight that took place last week, when he lost an important fight by knockout. This drove him crazy. Not only did he fail then, but even today he can't knock out this bastard. He wants to end everything now. The Mad Dog hits again with all his might. His attacks became more and more powerful each time. He definitely has something wrong with his head. It was becoming more and more difficult to parry these blows, and besides, the man did not disdain kicks, which were prohibited in this situation. After one of these, the hero flew straight into the corner of the ring. The missed attack was so strong that he was seriously injured and blood started coming out of his mouth. But the Mad Dog didn't even think about stopping. Instead, he rushed forward with a crazy look and tried to finish his job. This time it was an unusual right hook, and a combination of several quick blows. If the guy misses even one, then he's finished. It seemed that the man had an unlimited supply of strength. He did not stop for a second and did not slow down even once during all this time. After all, the mad dog has been boxing for several years now, and knows that if you continue to push without stopping, then at some point the opponent will definitely give up. At some point, time around Chen seemed to slow down 100 times. Before his eyes he saw only his opponent's glove. It was about to fly right into his head. At that moment, a voice told his head that the guy's life was in danger. His skull would be broken in exactly half a second. Only thanks to this, the hero comes to his senses and miraculously dodges, but now one of his training gloves is on the floor. The situation continued to escalate. Now he could not normally fight off these attacks, and if a man hits him at least once, then there is a risk that everything will end incredibly badly. Suddenly, the hero's instinct of self-preservation turns on and only one thought begins to spin in his head. Now the most important thing was to survive. At the level of instincts, he feels that right at this moment he has a chance to carry out a counter-strike. There was no time to think, now it's either him or a mad dog. Chen definitely didn't intend to die here today, because he still has a lot of things to do in this world, so he hits the enemy right in the jaw with all his might. The counterattack turned out to be simply brilliant. Subsequently the man falls to the flooring with a very loud sound, and cows begin to flow from his mouth. Everything happened so quickly that the people standing near the ring at that moment couldn't even really see anything. And at that time the hero spent all his strength just to stay on his feet. That missed blow had severely battered him. His friend saw this and immediately rushed into the ring to help him. At that moment the guy was already practically unconscious. The captain was not at all upset about what happened. In fact, he was happy with both options, because now he had a reason to get rid of this brat. He also went upstairs and asked Chen how he allowed himself to attack the boxer. This is a gross violation. Now he will have to revoke his license as a sparring partner. But Wei asked this fat idiot if he was really blind, because everyone around saw that it was the mad dog who began to break the rules. A little more, and the hero could remain disabled for life. At that moment the guy came to his senses. He was horrified by the thought that he might now have taken a person's life, although he had no choice. But it's still terrible. It was impossible to draw any conclusions yet. The mad dog was seriously injured. We needed to wait for the doctors. All that could be said was that now the hero might have problems. After all, the Iron Wolf definitely doesn't ask for this, so you need to inform the top management of the sports club as soon as possible. Chen, meanwhile, had to rest properly. He also needed urgent medical attention. No one knew how serious his injury was. When a sparring partner hits a boxer, this is considered a very serious violation. If the hero's guilt is proven, then he will definitely not have a career as a fighter. The testimony of witnesses must be urgently recorded. The Iron Wolf couldn't believe his eyes. How this little guy dared to do this. His gaze became as crazy as a boxer's during a fight. This brat killed his brother, and now he also wants to get away with it. The man couldn't allow this. Right now he was going to take revenge. But he was stopped by the hero's comrade. He had long wanted to try his hand at such an opponent. If he wants to harm Chen, then first he will have to fight with him. Within a few minutes, the club's management arrived at the scene of the incident along with a doctor. They intend to find out who is right and who is wrong in this situation. The captain immediately began to say that the guy broke the rules and hit the boxer. For this he must be severely punished. He must be made an illustrative example. In response to this, the hero explained that he had only used the necessary defense. The mad dog was the first to break the rules and wanted to injure him. One of the visitors noticed Chen's hands. They were both beaten until they bled. How can this be called normal boxing? If that man enters competitions like that, then it spoils the whole face of this establishment. The director of the hall looked at the guy's hands. They were really bleeding. There was no living space on them. In order to understand what happened, it was decided to check the injuries and be sure to extract video from surveillance cameras. The doctor said that she could examine the mad dog right here. For this she had everything she needed with her. To do this, she put on medical gloves and prepared to climb into the arena where the man was lying. The guy recognized her immediately. This pretty young girl was the chief doctor of their martial arts palace. He hoped that she would not examine any strange places. The doctor very quickly made a diagnosis. Due to a blow to the throat with the edge of his hand, the mad dog lost consciousness. He must be urgently taken to intensive care. Otherwise, he may soon die, so the man is urgently placed on a stretcher and an ambulance is called for him. After that, everyone goes to the control room to look at the recordings from the CCTV cameras. They clearly showed that the hero used self-defense. Now no one has any doubt that it was the boxer who broke the rules and entered the ring simply to beat the man, and his partner was simply defending himself. The girl's name was Shenu, and she was worried about another question. The mad dog looked simply crazy during the fight, as if he was under the influence of some kind of illegal substance. Wei was sure that it was all built by Wang Tingwei. That was the name of their captain. It was obvious that he set up the fight and gave the boxer a prohibited drug. But the man immediately began to justify why he had to do this. He said that for such slander he could get punished himself. But how then could one explain why Chen was assigned to a fighter who was several levels higher than him? This had never happened before. In fact, this thought came to everyone who watched the fight. It is impossible to argue with these facts. Everything was obvious. Other visitors to the hall even guessed what substances we were talking about. Most likely they were blood pills. Such doping is quite difficult to get. People began to hear talk everywhere that Wang Tingwei had already gone completely crazy with his connections. How could he give this medicine to a mad dog? But Shenu argued that if the man had really taken such pills, then most likely it would not be him who was in the hospital now, but a hero. The club director greatly regretted that he appointed Wang Tingwei as the captain of the team of sparring partners. He did a simply disgusting job. In the end, everyone agreed that it was the mad dog who first broke the rules, and the guy, in turn, went beyond the limits, and since they have laws that say that fists and legs have no eyes, when you enter the ring, you must realize that at any moment you can lose your life, and those who are afraid of death have no place in their martial arts palace. But it was necessary to take into account one more point. Boxers were the main asset of their club. It was they who brought it popularity and income. And since the hero, being in the status of a training partner, paralyzed one of the fighters with his blow, he must bear responsibility for this. Now, starting from today, it will be Chen who will take on the role in the ring instead of the mad dog. This shocked the guy. The Iron Wolf was happy about this, because his brother agreed with the organization for 15 competitions, and now this brat should compete in his place. But the hero's friends did not agree with this, because the guy was just a sparring partner, and also of a very low rank. How could he replace an experienced boxer? Comrade Chen, who helped him up when he almost lost consciousness, offered himself as a boxer. He was ready to do it in his place. The director did not deny this option, but still it was the hero who injured the person, so he will have to bear responsibility for this. That is why a comrade can only compete in 10 competitions, and in the remaining 5 Chen will have to fight himself. After this, the man leaves. He says that the guy is obliged to come to him as soon as he heals his wounds. They will sign a contract. When the director left, Chen felt a great danger that awaited him ahead. It seemed that an aura of death was hovering around him. After that, his comrade went to the first aid station. The hero still could not stand on his feet normally, so he needed help. The hero tells his friend that he did not need to get involved in this matter. After all, he was the one who injured the boxer, and now he must answer for it. But Wei replies that he shouldn't worry about him. He's still much more experienced, and if he has 10 more competitions, then there's nothing to worry about. Besides, you never know what could happen to the guy, and then who will take care of his little sister. He should not forget about responsibility. Chen agrees with him, but still once again asks for forgiveness for dragging his comrade into this, and he, in turn, says that only thanks to the hero he was able to achieve such a technique. Shenu was already waiting for him in the room. The girl said that the guy can sit wherever he wants, but now he needs to be examined in detail. While the doctor was bandaging the hero's wounds, he asked her why she helped him then and said that the mad dog was to blame for everything. The girl replies that probably because she is simply kind, it was hard for her to watch such a fool being fooled. That is why Shenu decided to at least help a little to get out of the situation, but Chen did not quite understand what the girl meant. In fact, it was very easy to prove the mad dog's guilt, so all he had to do was pay the fine, and Wang Tingwei would take the main blame. But speaking objectively, the guy had no money at all, in this case, everything could have been resolved entirely through a lawsuit, but he got very excited. Shenu asked her to be honest with her whether Chen was really confident that he could withstand 5 whole competitions. Suddenly the guy seemed to wake up from a deep sleep. Indeed, after that last blow everything in his head was mixed up, only now he realized that he would have to fight against real boxers 5 times. It was really bad. Did Chen also involve Wei in this matter? How could this even happen? Did he really not have enough brains to realize everything earlier? As it turned out, the director of the club, whose name was Paul, had been watching this whole situation for quite some time. It's incredible that he was interested in Wei's abilities from the very beginning, and was only used as an excuse to sign the agreement. No wonder Paul really wanted to watch the fight between him and the Iron Wolf. Shenu noticed that her patient quickly understood everything. After all, the hero was not completely stupid. In any case, the mad dog was the director's man, and the fact that he wanted to deal with Chen is also true. Now you need to think about the fact that if the guy doesn't make progress, he most likely won't last even 3 competitions and will most likely die right in the ring. All this time, Chen was wondering what Paul's intentions were in the end, why the director needed to organize this whole performance. Meanwhile, the girl said that it was too late for her shift to end. She wanted to quickly go home and rest. She said goodbye to the hero and asked him to be careful, but there was something else. Shenu at the last moment handed over a small piece of paper into his hands. It was written on it that the guy needed to come tomorrow at 9 in the morning to the 18th floor in the Gallery of the Bright Moon. Chen could only guess what this meant. The next day, the hero walked down the street and carefully read the contract that the director handed him. He needed to carefully study this document. But in the end, he had no choice. Even if the guy refused to sign this paper, he would endanger his comrade even more. Now he would have to put his life on the line. However, one couldn't dwell only on the bad. Today Chen earned some money, now he should go and buy medicine for his sister. But suddenly, when he had almost reached the pharmacy, he heard loud cries for help, and somewhere nearby someone attacked a woman. This happened in a nearby alley. A man with a tattoo on his arm tried to close the girl's mouth, and she asked to let her go. But the freaks didn't even listen to her, so she tried to free herself by biting the hand of one of them. Unfortunately, this only worsened the situation and she was hit. After that, the attacker pulled out a knife and threatened the woman. He advised her to be quiet and calm down, otherwise it would only get worse. But in any case, even if she screams at the top of her voice, no one here will hear her and no one will come to help. As soon as the pervert finished his monologue, he abruptly tore off the girl's clothes. Right at that moment Chen entered the alley and ordered this freak to take his hands off the girl. The man, in turn, tells the guy to mind his own business. It seemed to him that the guy was completely miserable, most likely he didn't even have money with him. And the second attacker at this time continued to let his hands go. The hero decides that he needs to act. There is no point in talking about anything with such monsters. He rushes sharply at the second villain and with one kick throws him back several meters, causing the man to fall with all his might straight into a pile of garbage. The first bandit decides that this scruffy brat needs to be dealt with as quickly as possible, so he attacks him with a knife. But Chen easily intercepted such a weak and slow swing, and in the end this freak also ended up on the dirty asphalt. After that, a couple of idiots still dared to complain about broken ribs and began to ask the hero for compensation for the injuries caused. The hero turned to the girl and told her that next time it would be better to go along the street where there are more people, and places like this are very dangerous. After that, the guy helped her put on her jacket, which she lost while she was fighting off 2 attackers. Now she better quickly go home. Suddenly the girl changed her expression to a smile and rushed straight at Chen. She thanked him. If not for him, who knows what they would have done to her. At one point, the hero realizes that this woman has come too close, and suddenly a voice in his head informs him of great danger. As it turned out, this girl had a knife hidden under her dress. The guy quickly realized that these 3 were all in the same gang and this was all their plan. Therefore, he has to act very quickly. Chen hits the attacker's chest with his elbow. This time he was much faster and thanks to this he remained unharmed. Because of this, the girl drops her knife on the ground, and her accomplices run away in fear. They were surprised how this brat could understand everything so quickly. The woman also ran after them. Once again the hero was saved by this strange voice in his head, although he had heard it since childhood, but where it came from was still unknown to him. Soon evening came, and Chen went to the pharmacy to buy medicine for his little sister. This time he had the opportunity to buy better medicine. The seller offered him 20-year-old ginseng root. His grandfather was ready to make a discount for him. The man knew perfectly well the guy's situation. Therefore, he was ready to sell this medicine even at a loss. The hero thanked him very much for this. He also bought a couple of fish. The broth from them is very useful. Thanks to these medications, little sister will soon be able to run. The owner of the pharmacy asks Chen to take better care of the girl and not let her strain herself. When the guy was almost home, he suddenly stopped and called Huadian. It turned out to be a small white cat with orange ears. This cat had one peculiarity. For some reason, instead of meowing like all normal cats, she constantly squeaked like a mouse. And for some reason the animal didn't want to grow, although she ate very well, because Chen regularly brought her several fish. In fact, he bought them at the pharmacy just for her. The cat has been living in this park for 2 months. Apparently she really has nowhere to return, so the guy decides that he needs to take her home. When he looked at her, he immediately associated her with himself. Someone also threw her out and left her to the mercy of fate. The hero wants to help someone the same way they once helped him. But suddenly Chen changed his mind. He remembers that soon he will have to spend all his time training, so he is unlikely to be able to take good care of her. In addition, the cat was so strange and quirky that it could probably live peacefully on its own, but it was too late. The animal was not going to let the hero go. However, she did not want to follow him, but on the contrary, the cat seemed to want to show Chen something and was trying to show the way. The animal seemed to understand human language. At one point it seemed to the guy that he was having some kind of hallucinations due to that injury after the fight with a rabid dog. Interest got the better of him and he followed the cat, walking a little deeper into the park, and they came across an unusual plant with an orange fruit. Suddenly the animal bit off a flower with its teeth and put it in Chen's hand. Did she really want the hero to eat it? The answer took me a long time to come. The cat nodded with a satisfied face like a real person. She really looked very funny and whimsical. The guy thought a little. After all, it was some kind of berry unknown to him, but still decides to trust his furry friend and eats the fruit. Immediately after this, some very strange things begin to happen to him. It was as if his whole life flashed before his eyes. All the good and bad memories appeared in his head at one moment. Chen also felt that some kind of extraordinary power had appeared in his body. He had never encountered such a feeling before. Because of the excess, he even shed a tear. Because of this, the hero lost his sense of time and space for a few seconds, so he was surprised by the tears on his cheek. Suddenly, an inner voice speaks to him again and says that he can use the given power for good. Let him consider it a chamber for his kindness. At the same time, the voice was exactly the same as it was then in the ring with the mad dog. It was definitely not a cat. She continued to squeak in her strange voice. The guy felt as if all the fatigue that had accumulated during the day disappeared in an instant. He was very happy. This voice would probably give him many more pleasant surprises. Meanwhile, Linka went outside to find him. Her face showed that she was offended by her older brother. Chen immediately understood what was going on, but asked her why she left the house. After all, it was already quite cold outside. In fact, today he returned half an hour later than usual. Because of this the girl was very worried. The guy, in turn, made excuses and said that he worked a little more today. But thanks to this, he has a gift for Linka. He just bought it on the way home. This thing will definitely help his sister feel better. The girl was surprised. She thought that it was a 1,000-year-old ginseng, but unfortunately it was only a 20-year-old. A 1,000-year-old hero has not yet mastered it. His sister understood very well that such medicine was very expensive by their standards. Chen probably worked hard to buy it. But the hero tells Linka not to worry about this. The root was not that expensive. The main thing is that she is cured. The rest doesn't matter. And now they need to go home and cook dinner. On the way home, they met 2 guys. One of them with a cigarette in his mouth immediately recognized them. There were always rumors about the brother and sister that they were adopted, so they were sometimes treated worse than the others. For some reason, the guy with the cigarette thought that the girl had stolen medicine from their pharmacy, and a very expensive one at that. This 20-year-old ginseng root costs at least 20,000, but Linka says that she didn't steal anything. Her older brother gave it to her, but the bully doesn't believe her. How can this foundling earn so much money? Suddenly their conversation is interrupted by Chen. he decides not to stand on ceremony and teach this upstart a lesson properly. With one precise blow he sends him to the asphalt. The hero also warns him that he can call him whatever he wants, but he should not say a word towards his mother, and especially his younger sister. This guy's name was Gu Ming. He was the son of the owner of a large pharmacy chain. His father came out to see him on the street right now. The man asked Chen why he was doing this. They were, after all, distant, but still relatives, but the hero didn't even want to hear about it, even though Gu Ming was actually his cousin. After all, the son of the pharmacy owner did not even recognize this woman as his aunt. He did not even see the problem in calling her a fallen woman. At this moment, Chen finally breaks down and rushes at him, saying that he has no right to say such things. His father tried to set the guards on the hero, but the hero immediately found a way out of the situation. He took out his contract and warned the men that if they dared to harm him, there would be consequences. After all, he is now the official boxer of the Heavenly Warriors Club, and right now they are out of nowhere accusing him of stealing their root. If even something happens to him, they will have to cover the damage to the martial arts palace for the fact that their fighter will not be able to compete. As a result, the men did not dare to cause them any harm. Now the brother and sister could safely go home. Today was a very difficult day. The guys hurried to prepare dinner. Linka also prepared a decoction of the root for herself. Her brother was very cool today, she told him so. But Chen recommends that she talk less, and rather stick to her medicine. Since childhood, why did you like to talk to yourself? Perhaps it's because of her poor health. Suddenly something strange happens. A ghost appears from the jewelry on the girl's neck. He looked very similar to her in childhood. The hero couldn't understand who this girl was. It seemed like she and his sister shared the same space, but why did he suddenly start seeing her? So Linka was talking to her all the time. Apparently in vain. He constantly reproached her for this. She was not talking to herself. This girl was a ghost. Too many strange events have been happening lately. Probably the guy was able to see her because of that berry. Suddenly the sister realized that her brother also began to see his little friend. They were both very surprised by this. Chen confirmed this guess. Because of this, little Linka was very happy. She always wanted to thank her older brother for supporting their family. The hero also wanted to thank the ghost girl for always being there for his sister, so now he has two of them. It turned out that little Linka was not even a ghost. The guy could even feel her. Because of this she laughed. It seemed to her that she was basking in the sun. Chen promised that he would try to earn even more money, so that both of them could rest assured that he would be able to support them. He definitely needs to get out of 5 competitions alive, and use the prize money to cure his little sister. This is exactly the goal the hero set for himself. Meanwhile, in one dark alley, someone attacked Wang Tingwei. The captain looked very beaten. Several teeth even fell out of his mouth. He tried to run away as best he could, but he didn't succeed, so the man asks to spare him and makes excuses. In fact, he was set up. Those who attacked him turned out to be an iron wolf. He didn't care whether he was stationed or not, because his brother was injured and the captain was involved in this. The mad dog has lost his position and reputation as an excellent boxer, and even lies in the hospital in serious condition. Doctors still do not give any guarantees. First, the Iron Wolf will send Wang Tingwei there, and then this brat who hit his brother, Chen, will definitely answer for his action. At some point, the attacker released the captain. Because of this the man had hope of salvation, but unfortunately, everything was not so simple. The Iron Wolf did this on purpose to break his victim not only physically, but also mentally. After that, the brother of the mad dog paid money to the local hooligans to beat Wang Tingwei even more. He himself was already a little tired of it. The next morning, the hero immediately went to the gym and began training on his own. Chen put in all his effort and practiced his kick, and he managed to improve his performance significantly thanks to that magic flower. Now the hero only had to be very careful, then he could easily withstand 5 fights and remain unharmed. Suddenly his friend runs up to him and with a frightened face reports that they have huge problems. As it turned out, the guy's first opponent would be the Iron Wolf himself. This was very strange, because the man was an experienced fighter who was even higher in rank than his brother. But for some reason the owners of the palace put them in the ring together. Chen suddenly remembered Shen Yu's words, and now there was no doubt that she had foreseen everything when she recommended that he be very careful. After that, the Iron Wolf himself came to them. He noticed that this kid turned pale with fear. as if he had seen a ghost, and his two henchmen recommended not to scare this brat to death before the battle. The man with a smile on his face insisted that everything was fine, because it didn't matter. From the moment the hero crippled his brother, he was essentially already dead. The Iron Wolf noticed a punching bag from the side and decided to demonstrate his abilities. He kicked it with all his might. Because of this, the sports instrument was torn into pieces, and this, by the way, was a 200-kilogram bag of sand. Chen was very impressed by what he saw. His roundhouse kick was sharpened as if this pair had been cut with a knife. It immediately became clear that the Iron Wolf had been training hard for many years. It was not for nothing that the man had such a reputation. This blow weighed at least half a ton. His assistants were confident that he could deal with this brat in a few minutes. The Iron Wolf told the guys that the captain had a bad fall yesterday, ended up in the hospital because of it, and is now eating tons of pills to survive. Wei immediately realized that it was this freak who beat Wang Tingwei, and now he just came here to play in front of all his muscles. And at that moment the hero was thinking that if he suddenly missed such a kick, he would definitely have a very hard time. But he still had hope that his inner voice would help him, because he had just managed to fix this technique. Such a show-off led to the revelation of his special technique in front of his opponent. Now the guy has even more chances to win. At this moment, Chen was too lost in his thoughts. Because of this, Wei brought up his feelings with a question about why he was smiling so strangely. After all, now there was no time for laughter. He had better think about how he was going to resist the Iron Wolf. Perhaps he should even come up with an escape plan. But the hero didn't want to talk about it. Even if he somehow managed to escape, he could forget about a quiet life, because this organization had connections all over the world. In addition, he is a boxer who signed a life and death contract, so it is his responsibility to take this fight. His comrade noticed that he were ordinary self-taught people. They would never beat such trained boxers as the Iron Wolf. Yesterday he fought with him and knew this firsthand. Chen doesn't want to think about it. He believes that you just need to study hard and train as much as possible, and then your potential will be literally unlimited. And in general, Wei should take better care of himself, because he still has as many as 25 fights ahead, so he may get even more than the hero. After this, the guy says that he has an appointment with someone, so he will have to leave for a while. Now Wei went to the 18th floor, where Shenu invited him. She was somehow very mysterious. Did she really decide to help him just out of pity? The hero had little faith in the fact that she was really telling the truth, but now all doubts had disappeared and hope remained only in her. When Chen finally arrived at the right floor, he was very excited. This place looked very luxurious. Most likely, this was exactly the floor where all the most important people in the organization of Heavenly Warriors live. This explained the whole situation. Suddenly a guy turned to him. He claimed that this hero was most likely on the wrong floor and should get out of here as soon as possible. How dare this little guy wander around the 18th floor? He better not catch anyone's eye, otherwise he'll instantly break his legs and throw him away. Chen replied that Dr. Shenu invited him here, so he cannot leave. After all, they have an appointment and the girl is now waiting for him. The guy with blue hair at first didn't quite understand who he was talking about, but most likely he was talking about mentor Chen. But what connected them was that Chen didn't look like her student. But he still decides to take the hero to the girl. The man wanted to take this chance to talk to the girl. The hero suddenly notices the enormous power emanating from the man walking in front, an inner voice telling him about the incredible danger. It immediately became clear that this guy was at a much higher level than even the Iron Wolf. Could all the warriors here be so powerful? When they arrived at the right room, there were a lot of guards at the entrance. Apparently Shenu was an unusual doctor. Her position in the organization is definitely much higher. The guy with blue hair decides to introduce himself. His name is Lin Guofei. He also talks about his fighting style and asks the hero about it. But Chen didn't even know that there was still a division into styles. He said his name and said that he was an ordinary sparring partner from the first floor. After this, Lin Guofei was finally convinced that the hero is an ordinary person without any prospects or potential. He is absolutely not interested in him. A few minutes later they came to the girl's room. The guy told her that he had brought the guest she had invited. She replied that Chen could come in. Lin Guofei recommends that the guy be happy, because his mentor gave him an audience. Not everyone gets such a chance. Chen immediately noticed that this guy was not indifferent to Shenu. Most likely he liked her, perhaps he was even a little jealous. When the hero walked inside, he was very surprised. He never expected to see his girlfriend training. It turned out that she was not only a doctor, but also an excellent fighter. It was clear that Shenu was not an ordinary boxer. Her passion was even greater than that of the guy with blue hair. It seemed that her energy could be seen with the naked eye. The girl had been training all this time on a special simulator that was designed to hone her blows. She soon finished and greeted her guest. Chen was a little shy from such an environment, and Shenu said to feel at home and come in. Now she will prepare tea for them. The girl had a very stern face, but at the same time she somehow managed to look very sweet. She must not be the most affectionate person. Soon the tea was ready and Shenu treated her guest to a cup of aromatic drink. The tea had a very pleasant smell, but the taste turned out to be a little strange. It is so bitter that it is even worse than a special medicinal decoction. Can an ordinary person really drink this? As it turned out, she could quite easily, even with pleasure. The girl, as if nothing had happened, drank several sips from her cup. And as if this were not enough, she noticed that the taste was rather bland. She needed to add more tea leaves. The hero was simply in shock. After this, Shenu asked her guest if he had already found out who his next opponent would be. Chen replied that he already knew about the Iron Wolf. This fighter was a professional from a special training camp. He also went through training in the Shaolin style. A man is stronger than a guy in both attack and defense. And to put it simply, the hero has no chance of winning in this situation. However, giving up is also not an option, because there is always hope and this case is no exception. Chen was very inspired by such words. The girl is ready to help her new friend increase his skills, because if the guy fights in this state, nothing good will happen. The hero couldn't understand why the girl was just helping him like that. It was very strange. She was definitely up to something. The guy decides to ask her about it directly. It turned out that this is indeed the case, but in fact it's nothing special. Shenu just wants to make a deal with him. The girl will teach him boxing, and in return he will help her do one thing. The hero asked what exactly we were talking about, but it was a secret. First he needed to survive the first fight, and then they would talk about it. This decision was reasonable, because in 3 days Chen was waiting for a battle against the Iron Wolf. If he was killed, then there would be no agreement. But still, the hero still had one question. Why did someone like Shenu need to pay at least some attention to someone like him? The fact was that the girl recognized his talent for martial arts, and also appreciated his moral qualities. But the most important thing was that the guy was very smart, because he somehow managed to put down a mad dog with a rather weak blow. By the way, Shenu already perfectly understood what power the hero now possesses, because she was a good doctor and understood this from the intensity of his pulse and breathing. At that moment, Chen remembered the words that he had once heard from one trainer. They said that a master is a master only when he can easily understand the strength of his opponent. Okay, time is running out. Right now the girl was going to show several techniques, while the guy didn't even know what he was about to be taught. As it turned out, it was a special fighting style called Wing Chun. The first rule that needed to be remembered was that any hand-to-hand combat is not complete without a waste of strength and skill. The hero must learn the piercing blow, which creates destructive energy. Now the girl will show him by example, and after that he must repeat it. This is necessary in order to break through the strong muscles of the Iron Wolf that he trained for many years in a professional training camp. Shenu stood up and concentrated on her right hand, after which she made a strike, and it was unusual. The energy was so properly focused that a simple swing of a fist turned into a powerful weapon. The shock wave could cover a distance of several meters. After this, the girl made many similar blows at a very high speed. Even her eyes did not have time to follow everything. The guy decides that he must remember the movement of her muscles. He took advantage of his unique ability, but there was one moment that greatly confused him. For some reason, when he copied the movement of a person, his entire body was without clothes. Shenu at some point completed her series of strikes. She was ready to show her friend this a second time. After all, it was impossible to remember everything at once. But suddenly the girl notices that Chen's face is as red as a tomato. She was very surprised by this and asked him what happened to him. The hero tried to justify himself and lied about the fact that he just ate too much ginseng yesterday. In fact, everything was fine with him and his master could continue. Suddenly the girl makes a blow right next to her student. The guy was very surprised by this. He had to somehow be brought to his senses. because they had too little time. The hero needs to be more careful, because Shenu will not repeat this technique to him more than 3 times. If he wants to learn something, he must try his best. Chen already understood this perfectly well. Something just happened that he did not expect. Now he has collected his thoughts and is ready to do everything that needs to be done. After several approaches, the girl explained to him the essence of the fighting style. It was to gain strength from the ground and move it to the lower back and the rest of the body. After a while, Shenu finished setting an example. The guy could finally breathe out a sigh of relief. Now all that remained was to quietly throw away the napkins with which he blew a bloody nose. The master asked the student if he remembered everything. He needed to properly train at least what he saw today. Chen promised that he would do everything in his power, but now he doesn't mind throwing out the trash. This was his only chance to hide all traces. Judging by his confused face, it is still too difficult for him to adapt to such techniques. He still needs to practice the basics well. After that, the two of them went to the girl's uncle. Although the chances were slim, it was still worth trying to get one gift from him. The man was playing a classic board game right now. Uncle lost to Lin Guofei for the 4th time in a row. Apparently he is not in his best shape today. Suddenly they heard a knock on the door. It was Shenu. She asked to come in, and the guy with her hair immediately rushed to open it for her, but was stopped by his uncle. He noticed that Lin Guofei has been walking abnormally lately. Apparently he has been missing a lot of training lately. He should get into the rider's position as quickly as possible. The guy should remain in this position until at least 6 hours have passed. Most likely, the man was angry because of the lost games in the board game, so he decided to win back in this way. Meanwhile, his niece and her friend were already inside. The girl was about to ask her uncle for a favor. They agreed that if Shenu fulfilled the plan called the Rising of the Dragon, then the man would give her one very good thing. The uncle remembered everything perfectly, but asked his niece if she was sure that this thing should be given to this particular guy. After all, there was only one attempt. The girl says that she is completely confident in him, because a person's appearance is often deceptive. The man says that Shenu is very impatient, but in principle he has nothing against it. In any case, this thing needs to be given to someone, but the uncle warns for the last time that he can only help his niece once. A few minutes later, they called the hero into their room. The man was going to test the skill of this guy. After all, his niece liked him for some reason. As soon as the master raised his hand up, Chen immediately felt the incredible power emanating from him. This power was incredibly harsh. It was simply unrealistic for him with his abilities to restrain this. Now the hero should just relax. The man noticed that this kid is not at all trained in internal style. Perhaps it is not worth injuring him, because in the future it could cause great harm. Therefore, the master removes all his spiritual power and throws a small box directly into the guy's hands. He, in turn, immediately noticed that all that power had suddenly disappeared somewhere. Chen immediately realized that this old man must be a very influential figure in the organization, and now he gave him some unique thing. The man was very disappointed in him. He could hardly believe that this guy was capable of entering the ring against such a boxer as the Iron Wolf and winning. Most likely his niece was mistaken. But the girl replies that her uncle shouldn't bother himself with choosing a person, because if she thinks that her friend is suitable, then that's quite enough. After that, they say goodbye to the master and go about their business, while Shenu and Chen looked quite calm. But as soon as the guys moved a little further away, the girl suddenly changed her behavior very much. She looked like she was very worried. The hero asked his mentor if she was okay. Shenu was actually just very happy that she managed to fool her uncle. Chen asked if the thing in this box was really so valuable. As it turned out, it was just a rare thing. Inside was a special potion called the Blood River Pill, the kind used to build the root foundation. Her uncle only had 3 of these tablets, 2 of which he had long ago given to his best students, and the last one went to the hero. The guy was very lucky. He was very grateful to his mentor, but lately he often has to taste different strange things. When Chen came home, he immediately went to his room and looked at Shenu's gift for a long time. It's amazing how such a small thing can be so valuable. The hero at first really wanted to give this pill to his sister, because it could help her a lot, but as it turned out, it was a very bad idea. After all, only someone who is full of vitality and healthy as an ox can take this pill, but the girl is very weak in health. She may not be able to stand it. By the way, the guy didn't even tell this to his friend. She somehow guessed about it herself. After all, the girl could already read him like an open book. Judging by the hero's physique, after he takes this pill, his punching power should increase by hundreds of pounds, and the remaining effects will appear during training. At one point, Chen realized that he had been thinking about this for too long. He even had a headache. Since this rare thing cannot be given to Link, then let the tablet be the beginning of his development as one of the best fighters in the entire country. As soon as the hero ate the pill, he immediately felt an intense heat throughout his whole body. The feeling was as if every molecule was burning on fire. It seemed that this power would now tear him into pieces. Every muscle in his body began to tremble, and energy overwhelmed everything around him. At that time, Linka and her little friend were watering flowers in the backyard. Suddenly the door from the house quickly swung open, and her brother ran out of it. The guy looked very strange. The girl asked what happened to him, but he didn't listen to her and just continued to do push-ups on his hands. He managed to do as many as 300 push-ups on his fingers alone, while the hero did not feel tired at all and was ready to continue training even the whole day. Chen has the feeling that he is now a boxer several grades higher than before, and indeed, this great thing is the blood river pill. Suddenly someone started spraying him with water. It turned out to be his sister. It seemed to her that his brother was a little out of his mind and he should cool down a little. Further events take us 3 days ahead. Today a battle will take place in the martial arts palace of the Heavenly Warriors. Right now the judge is greeting all the guests in the hall. The first round of this long-awaited fight was about to begin. Everyone who came to the martial arts palace today to enjoy the boxing competition truly made the wisest choice. The organizers, in turn, prepared an excellent fight for them. An iron wolf appeared on the big screen at the very top of the building. First of all, the organizers present the fighters to the crowd. This man was the best graduate of the 38th edition of the Death Training Camp, in which he qualified for high-level competitions, has 8 victories and 0 defeats. He strikes fiercely and lightning fast. The Iron Wolf is an extraordinary and tough opponent who has received several nicknames in professional circles such as the Knife Bearer. The crowd cheered when he appeared on the big screen. Boxing fans love this fighter for his special style and ruthlessness towards his enemies. If the Iron Wolf starts fighting in earnest, then most likely Chen will not be able to withstand at least a dozen of his techniques. Will the hero survive today's battle? Wei thought about this. His signature style was footwork. They were like 2 knives that were impossible to resist. Right now the Iron Wolf was coming out into the hall. The crowd exploded when he appeared in front of them. His popularity was off the charts. Everyone was eager to watch him beat up his next opponent. The presenter understood that there was no need to once again talk a lot about the strength of this man. Let's better look at the daredevil who will fight with him today. This boxer was the sparring partner of the gold medalist of the Organization of Heavenly Warriors, a young boy with incredible ambitions. They say that he is an outstanding newcomer from the cast of fist-fighting masters of the Southern School. His name is Chen Su, and today he will try to prove that he is worthy of being called a professional fighter. In 2 years, he managed to independently master defensive kung fu, and it seems that there is no boxer that he could not stand against. After this, the presenter, as the first time, asked those present to warmly greet the hero with applause. But now there was deathly silence in the hall. After all, the guy was fighting his first official fight, so no one had seen him before or heard anything about him. Even the presenter was surprised by such a reaction. It was completely ugly. He took it personally and thought that he was simply a very bad presenter. But the hero wasn't upset at all because of this. In fact, it was expected that no one would like him. It didn't matter at all. In any case, he has something to fight for, so today Chen will enter the ring and do everything in his power to emerge victorious. And yet, the guy was not left without support. His faithful friend Wei loudly shouted words of support to him. Now the guy was much better. After all, when you have a real friend, then you are no longer at all interested in the opinion of an unfamiliar crowd. It's good that he has such a person. Within a few minutes, both boxers were in the ring. The long-awaited fight was about to begin. At any moment the presenter could announce its beginning. While the crowd was shouting the name of the favorite of today's confrontation, a man with blue hair was carefully watching all this. His name was Tang Jiang. Right now he was in the VIP box with other people. The other man's name was He Peng, and he was expecting a good show tonight. Qi Pyo also rooted for the Iron Wolf. Everyone present was confident of his victory, because this fighter is always good, especially when he works with his legs. But everyone said about Chen that a lot of people like him have appeared lately. They are not there to make money, but simply for PR. Those who are capable of something end up in the fighting staff, but in general they are all weaklings. Suddenly He-peng invites Tang Jiang to bet on today's match with him. After all, it was easy money, because the Iron Wolf never lost in 8 matches. But the man with the hair was not interested in this. He considered He-peng an ordinary show-off who does not understand the importance of such fist fights. Tang Jiang is ready to make his bet and his choice fell on Chen. Everyone present was shocked, but the man knew that the masters of fist fighting of the Southern School could always surprise. They tried to dissuade him from such a decision. He could at least pay attention to how very different the physiques of these people are. Tang Jiang laughed in response to this, because if height was responsible for winning fights, then why would they even need to enter the ring? He-peng accepts this bet and says that if their distinguished guest wants it, then they will bet 100,000 on the Iron Wolf. Meanwhile, in the ring, the rivals met their gazes. At that moment it was as if an electric discharge appeared between them. The referee reminded them of the rules of the fight. During a battle for life and death, the loser is the one who runs away from the ring or loses the ability to resist. The hero at that moment understood why the Iron Wolf wanted to fight with him so much, because now he had a hidden hint to kill his opponent. Finally, the day has come. If the guy can withstand at least 3 kicks, the man promises to spare his insignificant life, but will still break his bones. Chen noticed that the Iron Wolf greatly underestimates the enemy. This must be used well, then he will have a chance of winning. Immediately after this, the girl with the sign announced the start of the first round. Right now the fight without restrictions started. The referee stood in the center of the ring and ordered the boxers to get ready. After a few seconds the sound of a gong was heard. The battle began with the Iron Wolf rushing forward, and the guy chose a more careful style and kept his distance for now. The man found it funny how this pathetic sparring partner was even going to compete with him. Was he really counting on these pathetic tricks? The Iron Wolf decides not to bother for a long time and use his signature blow. He carries out his favorite kick with lightning speed. The man expected that after this blow the fight would simply end, but to his great surprise, Chen managed to block it with his hand. This unsettled him. How could this brat learn to block such powerful attacks in such a short time? And in the meantime the guy prepared his counter-strike. The counter-attack was very successful. The hero was able to easily hit his opponent straight in the face with his fist. The people in the hall couldn't believe their own eyes. Right now the clear favorite missed a very strong blow. The Iron Wolf didn't look like himself. But the man was not going to give up at all, although he made a big mistake when he lowered his guard and let this sucker hit him. Now he will respond to this one blow with a dozen of his own, and they will be several times stronger. After this, a real hail of fast and powerful blows began, but the hero still managed to dodge them. Even the presenter was surprised. Right now the participant who is a clear underdog was dodging numerous attacks of the Iron Wolf. It's not for nothing that he is the sparring partner of the champions. The spectators in the VIP room could not believe that this was really happening. Would their bet really lose today? During one of the man's swings, Chen notices that his opponent was quite tired. This chance definitely had to be taken advantage of. Therefore, the guy makes a successful retaliatory attack for the second time. Everyone around could get the impression that this newcomer and the vaunted Iron Wolf are equal in strength. But in reality, everything was not so rosy. The hero realized that the kick he had just blocked almost broke the bone in his arm. If there is another one like this, he may receive a serious injury with which it will be very difficult or even impossible to fight further. Now the man had to dodge his opponent's blows. He couldn't understand what was wrong with this guy, where he got so much strength from. He couldn't even hit him with his fist once. Chen was right now trying to remember everything that Shenu taught him. It was thanks to her that he could now stand confidently on his feet. The hero once again successfully hits the wolf. It was his girlfriend's signature blow. He still managed to learn this technique in very condensed lines. Now many fist-fighting fans present in the hall went over to the guy's side. They shouted his name and wanted him to hit again. Chen at that moment suggested that most likely if he managed to land at least one more successful blow, then victory would be his. Suddenly the sound of a gong rang. The crowd became very angry. Why was the fight stopped right now? But in fact, everything was according to the rules. The judge announced that the first round of this fight was over. The allotted time had just expired. Now the fighters need to stop and go to the corners. The guy was very unlucky. just a couple more seconds and he would have emerged victorious. But the Iron Wolf, on the contrary, was happy. He was incredibly lucky. This race literally saved him now. Wei was very angry because of this situation. He also understood that if his friend had time for at least one more blow, then everything would be over. Shenu was also here at that time. It seemed strange to her that the round ended at that very moment. Was someone really involved in this again? Suddenly she notices that the club director is talking to the Iron Wolf. Is the man really making some plans again? Perhaps this scoundrel bribed the judges in advance, and as soon as the Iron Wolf was almost put down, the fight was deliberately interrupted. For her student, the situation was very unfavorable, because the guy spent a lot of effort in the first round. He needed to come up with something. Suddenly, right after leaving the first round, the man coughed. It seemed that the missed blows were making themselves felt. One of his assistants asked if everything was okay with him. The Iron Wolf replied that everything was fine. This kid just took him by surprise. But in fact, right now the Iron Wolf was very worried. It was not clear to him when this little devil managed to become so strong. No one should know about his internal trauma. A few days ago, Paul told him that someone had already told everyone around him that a sparring partner had killed a mad dog, which had greatly tarnished the reputation of their boot camp. Perhaps someone wanted to harm their school out of envy, because last year one of the students from this camp defeated absolutely all the fighters from the southern school. And right now, this girl had already entered the pole star dimension to transfer martial arts, and the director also had evidence. These were photos of Lin Guofei from the 18th floor, and Chen was also in them. Could it be that they planned all this and the hero is their person? Paul said that it doesn't matter whose person he is, their school needs to restore its good name. For this the Iron Wolf must win in battle. The man agrees with his boss. He guarantees that he will defeat this brat in the ring even at the cost of his own life. Right now the Iron Wolf was in the restroom. He recalled this conversation and understood that today he had no right to defeat. Therefore, the man decides to use doping and takes out those same red pills from his pocket. This substance is strictly prohibited by the rules. A few minutes later the second round was announced. The crowd was already very tired and cheered the fighters. While the hero was getting into the ring, he was thinking that the Iron Wolf was seriously injured in the first half of the fight. Now he just needs to be careful. But from the man's appearance it immediately became clear that something was wrong with him. The guy's opponent looked very strange. As soon as the referee announced the start of the battle, the Iron Wolf instantly rushed forward. His eyes seemed to glow red. Chen immediately noticed this, but did not understand why this happened. Perhaps now his tactics with careful combat would not work. The man immediately started the second round with his signature kick. This time the technique was several times stronger. Because of this, the hero's left hand cracked. Due to the fact that his opponent took doping, Chen did not have time to follow his movement and he had to cover himself with his previously damaged hand. But the Iron Wolf was not going to stop there. He immediately carried out a second blow. Because of this the guy flew several meters back. And he hit one of the corners of the ring with all his might. Apparently Chen was seriously injured. Blood began to flow from his mouth. But the hero was not going to give up. He wiped the blood from his face and tried to hit his opponent back, but the man easily dodged. The Iron Wolf always instantly responded to any movements of Chen with his own attacks. This situation was completely opposite to that in the first round. Surely the favorite now began to hit with full force. The crowd around supported the man. They thought that he had finally started to fight for real, and Shenu realized that things were bad for her student. Most likely the guy has already lost this fight. If he doesn't have some secret technique or something similar, then it's all over. Chen at some point realized that the Iron Wolf had used a prohibited drug. Because the power of his body had become many times greater, he asked him if the man was afraid of a doping test. But in fact, his opponent didn't care, because he came here not to defeat the hero in a fair fist fight, but to avenge his brother. Right now, the Iron Wolf is dreaming of putting the guy in a wheelchair. This is just one-sided reprisal. At the same time, each blow from the man became stronger and stronger, and as a result, Chen could not withstand such pressure and missed another attack. Today, he will restore the reputation of their boot camp, even if it means sacrificing his own career or even his life. The Iron Wolf tries to step on the guy's face with his foot, but he only manages to move aside at the last moment. The hero quickly gets to his feet and realizes that if he had hesitated even for a moment, his head would now have been pressed into the carpet in the ring. Suddenly, he comes to the full realization that the person in front of him right now, in all seriousness, wants to kill him. The man once again carries out his signature kick. Chen needs to find a way out of the situation right now, because his left arm is already broken. The guy could only endure the beating and try his best to stand on his feet. In fact, it required enormous effort. Right now, with his masterly kicks, the Iron Wolf drove his opponent into a hopeless situation. The hero seemed to have no strength left to retaliate. Wei sees that everything has gone too far. He shouts to his friend to quickly jump out of the ring, otherwise he will be killed. Shenu was also very worried about her student. Her face showed great anxiety, but unfortunately she could not help. But Chen was not going to retreat, because he is still able to stand on his feet, which means he must continue to fight to the end. After all, there are still people in this world who rely on him. If he runs away now, he won't have the money to treat his little sister. Also, the guy already promised his mentor that he would win today. This girl, out of the kindness of her heart, did him a huge favor. He is obliged to repay the debt. As soon as the hero thought about this, a picture that he saw during Shenyu's training immediately popped up in his head. It seemed that he had come up with something. His opponent, meanwhile, did not want to stop for a second. The man wanted to send the guy to the floor with a blow from above. The Iron Wolf dreamed that this brat would never get back on his feet. The presenter and everyone present understood that right now the man was going to deliver a decisive kick, and if he succeeded, the fight would end immediately. The guy continued to stand in place. He was no longer able to dodge, but he always keeps his word, so he spends enormous efforts to block the blow with his hand. Everyone present was shocked. Somehow this young man managed to withstand such a furious jumping attack from an experienced fighter. Chen didn't stop there. He got a second wind and ran forward. He managed to take advantage of the moment and hit the Iron Wolf with his elbow right in the jaw. And after that, block the man's right hook with your hand, even if it is broken. It looks like the hero got into a groove. He looked like he was the main favorite of this match. The guy delivered several blows to the opponent's body. Shenu couldn't believe her eyes at this time. She didn't show such a technique. He could only see it once when he first entered her room. Was her student able to master it so quickly? He really has a huge talent for martial arts. Who would have thought? He only looked for a few seconds and was immediately able to remember everything. Now the hero already had an excellent mastery of the skill that his mentor taught him. Meanwhile, Chen continued his endless series of blows to the body of the Iron Wolf. All he could do was dodge and retreat back all the time. Now everything was bad for the man. In close combat this brat had an advantage. He needed to take more distance. But the hero was so good that he was not going to give his opponent a chance to win. He would never be able to escape from here. At some point, the guy demonstrates something truly incredible. His already fast blows begin to rain down with even greater speed. The man tried his best to cover himself with his hands, but he could not do anything with such pressure, and as a result, the Iron Wolf missed a powerful blow right to the jaw. Because of this, he loses his balance and spends his last strength just to stay on his feet. He's already really tired of this kid. Right now, the Iron Wolf needs to find a way to end the fight with one blow, otherwise he simply won't have the stamina to continue. The man remembered one trick that he was taught at the academy. He pretends that he is going to hit with his hand, but in fact he moves to the side and hits his opponent with his head in the chest. However, the guy was ready for this. Did he really want to force him to retreat? The Iron Wolf should dream less. The hero grabs his opponent by the head and, using a special fighting style, throws him with such force that he flies up several meters into the air. The man had no chance to get out of this situation. As a result, he hits the hard floor of the ring with all his strength. The spectators didn't even understand what it was, whether such an experienced boxer as the Iron Wolf had just been defeated by this newcomer. It seems that this really happened, because the man lay and did not move. The judge approached him and concluded that he was unconscious. Ladies and gentlemen, let's warmly applaud today's winner. This evening it is Chen Su. The crowd burst into applause. They really enjoyed this fight, because everyone loves stories about defeated favorites, and Wei was the most happy. While the presenter thanked the fighters for such a performance, the hero went to the locker room. He also had a great time. The guy went into the recreation area and leaned his back against the wall. he felt very bad. He tried his best not to lose consciousness. A friend ran to him first and asked if he could help somehow, but Shenu immediately followed him into the room. Now it's doctor's time. The girl masterfully took out a small box from her pocket. It turned out to be special needles for acupuncture procedures. Chen was very badly beaten. Acupuncture and moxibustion created special channels for the flow of energy and blood. After just a few minutes, the guy's breathing evened out. Now he was much better. He asked his friends not to worry about him so much. The teacher praised her student. He was a real good guy. He managed to master everything she showed him in such a short time. The hero was already smiling. He boasted that he actually has a cool ability that helps him grasp everything on the fly. Shenu didn't expect that the guy was so modest. Probably this ability also helps him not to feel pain, but most likely not. Wei was counting something on his fingers at this time. Entry into the ring costs 20,000, and the percentage of similar tickets is 14,000. As it turned out, the comrade was counting how much Chen should receive for this fight. If we take the minimum, it turns out to be much more than 30,000. When the hero heard this, he was so happy that he got up from the bench too quickly, and as a result, something really hurt in his side. The girl authoritatively stated that his muscles in this place were torn. He was all beaten up, and even with injuries, did he really not want to live? Wei agreed with Shenu. Now the guy first of all needs to get properly treated, and he will have time to take the money at any moment. In fact, this evening of fighting was not over yet, but almost all the spectators had already begun to leave, because nothing could beat such a fight. There was always talk in the crowd about how worthless this Iron Wolf was. He went up against some newcomer from the training camp and lost. Tang Jiang, meanwhile, noticed that He Peng was wrong to underestimate this boy, because looking only at appearance is very stupid. Chen's physique, although fragile, was clear at first glance that he was engaged in martial arts, and he had every chance to cope. The other man, meanwhile, drank a lot of alcohol and finds it hard to believe that he lost so much money today. But there was nowhere to go. The loser pays, only now he didn't have cash with him, so he'll write a check. The loser pretends that he was not offended at all and says goodbye with all manners. The man had a wonderful evening, and now he needs to go. In fact, He Peng harbored a strong grudge. How this stupid northerner even dared to mock him. He will definitely regret it. Tang Jiang is convinced of the authenticity of the check. Today this guy made him very happy, so the man hands the paper to his assistant and tells her to give it to Chen. After this fight, in the office of the director of the martial arts palace, for obvious reasons, everyone was talking about why it happened that the Iron Wolf lost. The boss gave him a chance for revenge and to restore the reputation of their school, and this idiot ended up ruining the situation of the training camp even more. This time the position has been shaken even more. It is not even known whether there is any way in this world to somehow correct this situation. This whole situation made Paul very angry. At some point he couldn't stand it. He jumped out of his chair and kicked the table with all his might. Because of this, the furniture flies several meters away and loudly hits the wall. Everyone around should stop chatting. Can't they use their brains at least once in their lives? After that, the director calmed down a little. This time losing to the Southern Schools Association meant losing part of the chance to win a place in the North Star. Old man Mingi is probably looking after Chen. There were no more explanations for such a rapid increase in strength, so it is impossible to quietly eliminate the hero. Also, they will not be able to reduce the qualifications of a competition participant, otherwise all the effort spent will be in vain. At that moment, his secretary, whose name was Carl, knocked on Paul's door. As soon as the blond man walked inside, he was surprised by the situation. Right now the head of the department is calling the director. It seems this concerns the matter of the place of the Polar Star. Paul was very upset when he heard this. Does his teacher really want to give him a chance after all? As it turns out, some people from a community called Eden want to make a deal. If everything works out, then the director will have a chance to get a position. As for the hero, they will leave the matter of eliminating him to people from the Black Killers. One of them will just be able to make it in time for the second round of the competition. When the guy held the fee for participating in the competition in his hands, he couldn't believe his eyes. His hands were even shaking. There was even much more than his friend expected. Chen received as much as 80,000. The guy was in seventh heaven. Wei was also surprised at this amount. Apparently Tang Jiang had a hand in this. This man really did not spare the money. With such an amount, it was already possible to say that my sister had every hope of recovery. Suddenly their conversation is interrupted by Shenu. She was angry that these two were making a lot of noise in the medical room. The girl orders them to be quieter. Right now the hero needs to take one pill. When the girl puts on glasses, for some reason she immediately becomes very strict. Chen likes her character much better when she's without those glasses. As soon as the guy took the pill, Shenu asked him to go get it. He was very surprised by this. Doesn't he need to rest as much as possible now? Wei asked his friend when they managed to get so close, also quietly behind his back, "Is this what you do with best friends?" But the guy asked him not to talk nonsense. He and this girl have nothing personal. Their relationship ends with joint training. Afterwards, Wei leaves, but asks that the hero someday teach him these cool techniques that he used in battle. When Chen entered his mentor's room, she took off her jacket and told him that she now wanted to reward him for winning the competition. After all, this is the only way he can demonstrate his potential in future fights. The guy was very embarrassed. Shenu immediately noticed this and advised him to quickly discard these thoughts. She was just going to show the student a new technique. These are basic exercises for mastering a special strike in his fighting style. We can consider that the essence is a deeper understanding of his path. The last time he spied on working with a wooden dummy, he managed to remember everything the first time and successfully repeat it. In fact, this fighting style is quite common, so if a guy wants to teach this to his friend, then this is quite possible. The hero never ceased to be amazed at his mentor, how she always managed to be so attentive and hear everything that was happening around her. However, if we are talking about a rider's stance with a breathing technique, then most likely even Chen will take some time to master. The guy asked how important these elements were, as it turned out that if he had learned these techniques before the fight, he could have won in a few seconds. This incredibly inspired the hero. He was ready to give it his all right now, but now he just needed to watch carefully. It would be nice to spar, but now Chen is too beaten, so they will postpone this matter for now. The guy was still very grateful. In the evening he could already go home. He really wanted to get better quickly and start intensive training. Suddenly Huadian appeared in front of him. The cat, as usual, addressed him in her strange voice. The hero was delighted when she appeared. They had not seen each other for quite a long time. Suddenly the animal began to hiss angrily, and for some reason it had two tails instead of one. Chen even fell to the ground in surprise. After that, the cat rushed straight at him, but it turned out that she didn't want to harm him at all. The animal just wanted to crawl onto his neck. Apparently she really wanted to go with the guy. She seemed to understand human speech. Does this cat really have a connection with spirits? A few seconds later, the two of them were already at home. Chen called his two sisters to his place so that they could see who he brought them. Linka and her little friend Snowflake were very happy about the cat. She was very cute. They will definitely take care of her. Although they saw her for the first time, Huadian also became like family to them. The most interesting thing was that she had two tails. The animal was probably very hungry, so Linka asked him to wait here, and she would go to the kitchen right now and bring her milk. But suddenly something bad happens to her little sister. The ground under her feet disappears and she loses consciousness for a moment. Fortunately, there was just a sofa near her and the girl was able to land on it. Her older brother was trying to find out what happened to her. He immediately began asking where exactly she was hurting, but Linka assured that everything was fine with her. She was much better now. She just had a little pang in her side. This happens to her quite often. She's already gotten used to it. Nothing serious happened. And by the way, the medicine that the hero gave her helped her a lot. The tincture of ginger root worked perfectly. Linka apologized to Snowball for scaring her, and Chen will immediately bring his sister a glass of water. He already needs to do something about her condition as soon as possible. Their mother is no longer there, which means it was his responsibility. The guy will under no circumstances allow anything bad to happen to her. At the same time, in one of the most expensive hotels in the city, a man named Tan Song came to He Pen. As it turned out, the gentleman personally called him here. The rich man noticed that his subordinate got here quite quickly, after which he called his assistant to bring him a suitcase. It turned out that there was a whole lot of money in it. He Peng needed Tan Song to teach one person a lesson, for which he was willing to pay 200,000. The customer showed the man a photo of his victim, and Chen could be clearly seen in it. A whole 14 days flew by unnoticed. the hero spent all this time studying a variety of textbooks on medicine, but unfortunately he was unable to achieve any results. In fact, there were a lot of diseases that could not be cured by either Chinese or European medicine, and it was useless for such a fool as him to read all these books. The only thing that occurred to him was that perhaps snow was the cause of his sister's illness. After all, the little friend was something otherworldly. Suddenly he remembers Shenyu's words. She once told him that she would help him find an excellent Chinese medicine doctor. The guy decides to immediately run to the martial arts palace and find his teacher there. Once again he can only rely on her. As Chen passed through one of the many parks, a guy in a yellow cap looked at him very strangely. As it turned out, it was one of Pen's spies. He immediately informed his boss that right now the target was heading to the martial arts palace. The boss replied that he understood everything. Now Veneer must contact Tan Song to tell him the exact coordinates of his victim. Soon the hero was already near the medical office, and at that time his girlfriend was drinking her favorite tea. He knocked and asked to enter. Shenu immediately guessed that her student came here about his younger sister. Chen was once again surprised by the insight of his mentor. But in fact, everything was visible on his face. The guy looked very excited. Now more than anything he wanted to find a good doctor for the girl. The girl has already looked at Linka's medical history. Unfortunately no one knows how to help her, including even the luminary of healing. The only hope was to turn to the needle of the devil's hand. This is an old doctor from the medical community, but he is currently abroad, so even if he agrees to come, it will not be soon. But will this man really be able to cure his sister? All the doctors they had previously contacted said that she had an incurable disease. As it turned out, Needle Mo had previously treated a similar case. His patient said that evil spirits had entered his body and upset the balance between yin and yang. But for this you need not only this doctor, but also several Shaolin monks. This is the only way there is a chance to help the girl. Although it was very difficult, Chen was still very glad that there was still hope, unless of course the girl was deceiving him. Shenu assured that all this is the pure truth, but she cannot tell some details yet. The main thing is that there is still something to treat Link. After this, the guy needs to leave. He asks his mentor not to worry about him. He should prepare properly for the competition. The girl believes him, but she has something else for her student. She tricks him into throwing some small thing into his hands. This thing was called the all-seeing eye. You need to put it on yourself. If something strange suddenly happens, you need to press the button. Thanks to this, Shenu will be able to see everything that happens around the hero within 30 meters, including video and sound. Chen really didn't quite understand why he needed this thing, because he was already capable of standing up for himself, and besides, he proved it in the ring. But the guy still didn't know much. As an official boxer, in addition to competitions, he would also have special tasks. After this, the hero remembered that the contract actually spoke of special tasks every 6 months. It was something like the role of a bodyguard. Chen wondered why Shenu had all these fancy things with her. She is a doctor. Suddenly the girl takes a special ID out of her pocket. It turns out that she is not only an excellent doctor and fighter, but also an employee of the department for especially important cases. The guy realized that he was in a big mess. Now if he does something stupid, he will immediately be put behind bars. His girlfriend is quite capable of this. After this, the hero leaves. On the way he thought about his sister. Now at least there is hope for her recovery, but if you invite the monks, then the snow will most likely be tight. Suddenly, the guy's inner voice told him that danger was looming over him, and he also heard a sound behind him. As soon as Chen turned around, he saw that a man was already flying at him from above. The guy managed to dodge at the last moment. It was the mercenary Tan Song. He had a mask on his face for camouflage. The man clearly had enormous strength, because even the ground under his feet began to crack. Due to a special device on the guy's body, the attack was seen in Shenyu's office. Her assistant told the girl that number 3 had been involved in an accident. The third number was Chen, but he had just received his all-seeing eye. How did he manage to get into trouble so quickly? But there was nowhere to go. Right now the guy was attacked by some kind of enemy, and most likely quite capable one at that. One could immediately tell that the villain was of high rank, because his technique was honed to perfection. He used his legs like a whip. But where could this man come from? Where did her student have so many enemies? It was necessary to find out the location now. Shenu intends to go there right now. After all, the hero was a very important figure for her. It's not in vain that she spent so much time training him. If they kill him now, then all her efforts will be in vain. This took place in a park nearby. If you use a car, you can get there in a few minutes. The assistant suggested that the girl call a taxi, because the faster the better, and where was the guy in such a hurry? In fact, Shenu will be able to get to the right place faster on her feet than by car, so she decides to go right now. The nurse was surprised how it could be that walking was faster than driving. Suddenly her boss jumped straight from the 6th floor. But still, the girl had special abilities, so she lands safely on the ground without any problems, even from such a height. On the way, Shenu tries to remember where she could see this man before. Most likely it was a student who received regalia from the master of the northern school. He studied kung fu from the old master for more than 10 years, which means that his strength is at a very high level. Her student, who has only studied his direction for a few weeks, will definitely not be able to cope with such an opponent alone. The girl moved incredibly fast. Her acrobatic abilities were no less surprising than her combat skills. Meanwhile, Chen and Tan Song were already fighting. It seemed that the man most liked to use his legs as his main weapon. The hero had not yet fully recovered, so it was quite difficult for him to move and parry numerous blows. His opponent notices that the guy is a rather primitive fighter. It is difficult to discern anything special and unique in him, just an easy prey. Tan Song wanted to quickly undress his opponent, so he began a series of quick attacks, but he still failed to hit Chen at least once. This man's legs were simply incredibly fast. The Iron Wolf's blows were incomparable. Such movements were even quite difficult to see. The hero tried to come up with some kind of plan of action, but it looks like he was seriously stuck. And why did this happen? As soon as Shenu gave him this device, it was clearly she who scribbled everything. And at that time the girl suddenly sneezed. It was strange because she was not sick at all. Is anyone really remembering her right now? The mercenary did not give him time to really think and continued to press. The guy was going to try the technique of working with a wooden dummy against him. To do this, it was necessary to completely relax the whole body and concentrate the energy of the earth at a certain point. Only then everything would work out. Fortunately, everything worked out, and now Chen could carry out his attacks in response. After all, he was not as simple as it might seem at first glance. But suddenly his opponent simply disappears somewhere. Just a moment ago he was standing right in front of the guy, and now there is no one there. After this, Tan Song also suddenly appeared out of nowhere. This was his special hidden strike technique. The hero would no longer have time to evade it. As a result of this attack, the guy had a deep wound on his forehead from which blood immediately began to flow. Still, the advantage in this battle still remained entirely on the side of the mercenary. This newcomer would never be able to reach him with his primitive attacks. The guy lost his balance and missed many strong blows. Tan Song is sure that if he manages to hit the throat now, this brat will be finished. The man tries to end this fight as quickly as possible, but the hero manages to block the attack with his hands. As it turned out, Chen not only stopped his opponent's leg, but also grabbed it. Now Tan Song needs to retreat as soon as possible. If he had not done this, he could very well have been seriously injured. The man had no choice in this situation. He was surprised that even in such bad conditions, this brat was still able to hold his ground and continue to resist. Most likely he was given false information about the target. This guy was clearly not a weakling. Although his abilities are not unique, he is very durable. The hero reacted very quickly to blows and adapted perfectly. If now the mercenary does not give his all, he is unlikely to be able to cope with him. Initially, Tan Song wanted to do everything quickly and beautifully, but apparently he will have to use all his strength. Pen watched everything that was happening from above. The man stood with binoculars and was happy that his man was winning the battle. The man decides to demonstrate his best blow. He runs sharply towards the wall and pushes off from it several meters up. This fighter was spinning in the air like a character from some superhero movie. It was hard to believe that a person was really capable of such a thing. The hero was completely in the zone of his attack. Even if he wanted to dodge, he would not be able to do so. He would have to dissipate the force of the blow from his leg. To do this, one had to use spiritual energy in both hands and hit back at the same time. It was very painful. Even after the blow dissipated, incredible power remained, but it still worked and the mercenary jumped back. Pen is even more surprised at his opponent, because Chen was able to repulse his signature blow. The man remembers yesterday, when before his visit to Hitman, a man whom everyone called Big Brother came to him. The man in the suit is taciturn, he wanted to do everything quickly, the young master wanted him to remove Tang Jiang for a good price. Big Brother is ready to take on this matter, but Hitman also wanted the man in the suit to kill Chen too, he had as much money as he needed. But the mercenary did not want to take on the murder of the guy. Had he really met him before, the gentleman was surprised by this, he was ready to pay any money. Big Brother asks not to ask stupid questions, is there really no killer in their group who can handle this? After this, the man in the suit leaves, and Hitman asks his assistant to call Tan Song's office to him. After defeating the Iron Wolf, the hero became quite famous in the circles of fighters, so the man immediately recognized him. He also did not want to take on this job. But the young master reminded him that if it weren't for his father, Tan Song would still be poking around in the beds on his mountains, so he should carry out this order. Hitman doesn't even hesitate to threaten the man's elderly father, it will be very bad if something happens to the old man. In addition, the mercenary will receive very good payment for his work, he could collect the fee right now. In such a situation, the man had no choice, although the young master was very kind to him, but his father was still more important. In fact, it was his mentor who allowed him to get out of a small village in the mountains and move to the city. If not for him, Hitman would never have agreed to take him to work. The gentleman is nothing on his own, his main strength is the money he inherited from his father. Tan Song decides to take up this business, then he can earn a good amount of money and return to his home village. A man wants to help his father live out the rest of his days in peace. He has been living in this foreign city for too long. That is why Chen Su must die now. Only in this way can the mercenary complete his task and find the meaning of life again. Therefore, Tan Song once again rushes to the attack. His master will definitely wait for his student, he just needs to finish the job. But the hero was not going to lose either. He once again blocks his opponent's blow. The guy believes that he can defeat him. The nurse contacted Shenu and asked if her boss had reached the scene, because Chen urgently needed help. Right now the hero was completely overwhelmed and could only defend himself, a little more and the battle could end for him. When the girl heard this, a smile appeared on her face, because her student was still standing, which means he had every chance of winning. The nurse was very surprised by Shenu's reaction, how could she be so confident in this guy, but the mentor understood perfectly well what enormous potential the student had. Chen had just begun to learn his direction, but on the other hand, as a sparring partner, he had learned excellent defense techniques. Thanks to this, he was able to use his new powers very skillfully in parrying. If he could maintain such a stance, he would never lose. At some point, Tan Song became tired due to the huge number of attacks. His target still continued to stand even though his arms were badly damaged. The mercenary realizes that if he continues to attack at the same pace, then his strength will be enough for literally several attacks. Therefore, he definitely needs to finish everything as soon as possible. For this he wants to perform his signature trick for the second time. At this moment, his inner voice addressed the hero. He told him that if Chen wants to win, then he needs to take advantage of this moment. After a few seconds, the guy's hands seemed to move on their own. Some instinctive feeling made him jump high up. As a result, the counterattack turned out to be simply magnificent. With one precise blow, he was able to knock his opponent straight to the ground. Chen didn't even fully understand how he managed to perform this technique so well, and Tan Song believed that such a brat had mastery of the 12 tracks. The man thought that this guy was secretly learning secret martial arts from everyone, and for this he should be taught a good lesson. The voice inside the guy began to speak again. He told the owner that his opponent had lost control of his own movements out of anger. Therefore, right now was the perfect moment for another counterattack. Chen asked himself why he could suddenly use such techniques, but there was no time for that now. The rivals continued their foolishness. Now their strengths were approximately equal, and even their movements were very similar. But after a few seconds, the guy was able to deliver a blow, which Tan Song did not have time to parry. Because of this the mercenary flew several meters away. Still, the hero manages to emerge victorious from this fight, although the danger was very high. If he had hesitated for a moment, he could well have died. Chen approached the attacker and asked who sent him here, but Tan Song was not going to hand over anyone. At that moment a voice inside the guy said that he needed to be killed. However, the hero did not want to do this at all, because if he kills him, then he will have huge problems later, perhaps even put in prison. The voice claimed that this looked like self-defense, but the guy was not going to follow the lead. Killing a person was too risky. Therefore, the guy leaves the mercenary and simply recommends that he give up this business, while an inner voice asked what our merciful one is going to do if this man attacks a second time. If this happens, then Shenu will be able to come to his aid. The hero has already turned on his all-seeing eye, now he will not be left alone in such situations. After this, Chen came to the scene of the fight. He was dissatisfied with such a terrible work of his man. Why did he hire him? But what does this rich man even understand about martial arts? This guy was able to improve his skills tenfold in just 2 weeks. He was not a weak opponent at all. In fact, the man was lucky to be alive at all. Such learning abilities were simply unique. Chen could even be called a genius. Shenu also arrived here. She of course had great faith in her student, but she was still surprised that he alone managed to cope with such a strong enemy. The girl noticed that the mercenary was not alone, but this was the first time she had seen these people. She needed to find out as soon as possible who they were and why they needed to order a guy. Suddenly, Shenu feels a strong danger near her. Some masked person was about to hit her right now. But it's not for nothing that the girl was one of the best fighters in the organization. She manages to react in time and escape. Moreover, Shenu is not going to just let the attacker go. She immediately attempts a counterattack. But this man was also very capable. His reaction was no worse than the girl's. As a result, they exchanged blows for some time. Shenu tried to find out who this man was and why he attacked her, but it seemed that the man did not want to talk about it. Therefore, he simply used a smoke grenade, and when his rival lost her vigilance, he quickly ran away. As it turned out, this masked man was Big Brother. Right now Peng and Tan Song were driving in the car. They were lucky that the man made it just in time. Big Brother was clearly unhappy with this situation. He would never have thought that such a powerful organization would not have a normal fighter. The young master notices that although this man is mediocre, his teacher is Tan Sanhuai himself, and this already says a lot. After that, Big Brother smiled. He was very interested in this information. Right now a plan arose in his head. Soon evening came. Peng was talking about something on the phone, and the man in the suit had already fulfilled his plan. He killed Tan Song, so he wanted to contact his mentor. Meanwhile, in his backyard, the hero made the same training tool as his mentors. He wanted to gain even more abilities as soon as possible. But it seems that the guy overdid it a little. His body could not withstand so much training. It would be better to rest for a few days. Because if he continues at the same pace, he may simply not have time to recover before the next competition. Suddenly Chen heard a loud meowing somewhere above, and strange sounds appeared on the roof. It turned out to be Huadian. Apparently the cat fell off the roof and fell head over heels straight down, ending up on the owner's face. The guy was no less scared than his pet. How did this even happen? Suddenly he notices something strange on the animal's head. It was some kind of yellow hieroglyph. The hero had no idea what this thing was and why it appeared on the cat's forehead, but his inner voice suggested that it was a spell. Chen is not yet used to the fact that this feeling appears to him so often. Besides, now the voice spoke as if it were a real person. The hero really wants to find out where he got this ability, where it came from and why it appears at random moments. Suddenly, a ghost appears in front of the guy, which is a complete copy of him. The entity claims that it can be called a shadow. In fact, it is Chen's second self. Although, to be more precise, this spirit is a separate personality that once upon a time moved into the body of the hero. This happened back when the guy was just a baby and was lying in a cardboard box one winter evening. Suddenly, an unusual cloud of energy fell from the sky. It could easily be lost from sight among the other snowflakes. This ball hit Chen directly. After this, the hero suddenly comes to his senses. He saw it all like a vision. Now he only has even more questions. But in fact, even his double could not say exactly what he really was. He only knew that he did not come from this world. The two argued for quite some time, but in the end there was no point in it, because they had one task. They needed to prepare as best as possible for the competition. The guy should not forget that only thanks to his double he has such learning abilities, and besides, he was able to find that berry only thanks to him. As it turned out, the hero and his double are inseparable. Their souls are intertwined as one whole, so if one dies, then the other cannot avoid the same fate. Chen found it very difficult to accept all this information. Although this voice said quite logical things, it still sounded very strange. Suddenly, for some reason, Huadian bit the guy's hand. One can only guess what exactly the cat didn't like this time. Linka came running to these screams. She became interested in what was happening in the backyard, but her brother said that there was nothing here and in general it was better for her to go to bed early. The girl doesn't really mind, but he should rest too. All this time, Huadian continued to hang on his arm. Why was this scoundrel so angry? The guy didn't do anything wrong. After some time, the animal finally got tired of it and unhooked it. This situation with the cat exhausted the hero more than many hours of training. Finally, an inner voice says that it understands Chen's feelings. He needs to be given time to get used to all this. However, there was one more very important thing. This strange character on Huadian's head is actually the key to healing his sister. Shenu scoured all the archives, but did not find a single clue to that masked man. It seems that the attackers planned everything well. It was very strange. Who would even want to attack her student, because this guy didn't even really have any money. Based on this man's fighting technique, it was safe to say that he was not from the same school as Mad Dog and Iron Wolf. Suddenly, the girl's phone receives a message from her assistant that this girl can send her again this early in the morning. But as it turned out, this was really important information. The photo showed how someone killed Tan Song. The news had already spread throughout the area. Shenu understands that this is no longer a joke. Since this man was killed, it means he belongs to an organization that does not even hesitate to eliminate its own people. She immediately called Chen to her place. He, in turn, unsuspectingly came to the mentor and apologized for the inconvenience. He even brought apples as a gift, but the girl was now wearing glasses, which meant that now she had the strictest character possible. The hero was immediately confused. He realized that he had done something, but he could not guess what exactly happened. But the nurse was not at all against fruit. She approached the guest and took his basket of apples. Her name was Tora. She was Shenyu's main assistant and girlfriend, but in fact, everyone called her just a berry or an apple. The girl asked her student if he looked at the latest news on his phone today, but as it turned out, his mobile phone could only make calls. The guy was so poor that he still carried a push-button telephone. Tora couldn't hold back her laughter and wondered if anyone was still using such ancient models. It seemed like they lived in different worlds. But what happened so important that there was a need to carefully watch today's news? First, Shenu reminds him that his second fight will take place very soon, so Chen should prepare well mentally and she will take care of the rest. She also had a gift for her boyfriend. It was in a large black bag. It turned out to be the uniform of their Association of Southern Schools of Fist Martial Arts. The fact that he received this clothing means official entry into their ranks. The hero was not even sure that he was worthy of such an honor, but his mentor assured that everything was fine, because he was her person, and therefore should have the appropriate social status. At this moment, Chen had a strange feeling. He was pleased at the same time, but he also felt some kind of dependence on the other person. Now if a guy suddenly meets a fellow boxer, he can simply say that he is a member of the Association of Southern Schools. But surely there won't be any problems if the hero talks like that. What if someone for some reason doesn't like the members of the Southern Association? But Shenu assures that as long as she is here, her student will not have any problems, because after all, her father is a difficult person. For now, it's best for Chen to go home and have a good rest. If something happens, he should call the girl as soon as possible. And Tora also strongly recommended that he change his mobile phone. Did he really want to look like he was in the Stone Age? The guy still decides to go to the company store and buy himself a new mobile phone, but as it turned out today he took too little money with him. While Chen was counting the money in his wallet, he was caught by a tall guy. He turned out to be quite large and strong. Because of the surprise, the hero even dropped his wallet and a gift from his mentor. It felt like he had just hit a stone. The man who touched him apologized and handed his wallet back into his hands. The guy looked like a foreigner. In addition, he was interested in martial arts because he immediately knew that Chen was from the Southern Schools Association as soon as he saw his clothes. The guy with dreadlocks was very happy, because he had long wanted to compete with a worthy opponent in a fist fight. His name was Isai. But everything was not so simple. The hero tried to explain to the foreigner that they have some rules, so you can't fight with everyone. However, Isai did not want to give up. an idea appeared in his head according to which they could become friends, and friends could learn from each other. And also to measure strength, this does not break the rules. Chen realized that the foreigner truly loves kung fu, so he still agrees to show his new friend a few techniques. Meanwhile, in the office of the director of the Heavenly Warriors, they were discussing a plan to eliminate the hero. That man from the Black Killers would not arrive yet, he had long been given another task. Paul was very angry because of this. Why didn't he show up? It seems this scoundrel simply doesn't care about him as a director. Carl agrees with his boss. The secretary hints to him that a dog that does not think about its owner is a bad dog. A few days later, the guy and his new friend became very close, and now they were once again training new techniques together in his backyard. Linka and her little friend watched this and were surprised, because in just 3 days their relationship became very close. Isai was actually a very good person. He always treated others with kindness, and also gave a new phone to her brother. At the same time, the foreigner was madly in love with martial arts, and besides, he was quite good at realizing himself in this matter. Right now he was fighting well against the hero. But Chen was still much faster, especially when it came to kicks. For some reason, Isai constantly fought with only his hands. The guy with dreadlocks admired his new friend's technique, but noticed that in the sport where he most often fights, kicks that high are prohibited. The hero told him that this was a blow from a different technique. In this country it is not forbidden to add something new to other fighting styles. Chen asked Isai why he never uses kicks at all, because in some situations they are simply necessary. As it turned out, the foreigner was missing one leg. Instead there was a metal prosthesis. The guy did not want to discuss this topic for a long time. Linka reminded her brother that it was time for them to go, because they still had a lot of things to do, and it would be evening very soon outside. They said goodbye and went their separate ways, but they would definitely meet again later. After all, they were both interested in fighting against each other. After that, the hero went to the hall, where he unexpectedly met his friend. As it turned out, he came to see if the names of the opponents in the second round had already been posted. Since Chen defeated the Iron Wolf, who was the best in his group, now no one from this category will dare to challenge him. For some reason, on the table that hung on the wall there were still no names other than the winner of the first fight. It was really strange. The guy was sure that the training camp to which the Iron Wolf and the others belonged would not leave him alone. Meanwhile, there were rumors in the hall that the opponents were still unknown, because the director had prepared one of the Black Killers for the hero. But people were inclined to believe that this vaunted killer simply chickened out, and what kind of organization these Black Killers were, no one had heard much about it. As it turned out, Paul heard their conversation, but he didn't react in any strong way. He simply told them to shut their mouths. If they think that everyone has chickened out, then let them enter the ring themselves. In fact, the Black Assassins have already prepared everything for the next round. Their man will arrive right on the day of the fight with Chen. The director decides that he can come up with a story with a cover of mystery so that no one suspects anything. One way or another, in the end he will get a good benefit. A few days later, the crowd once again gathered in a huge hall for a spectacular fight between the best fighters in the country. The presenter said that the fight planned for this evening was about to begin. All visitors had to wait just a little bit. Wei, for some reason, had a very bad feeling and recommended his friend to abandon today's fight. Still, this story with an unknown enemy was too strange, but frankly speaking, the hero has no way back. His comrade continues to insist on his own. His boxing intuition has never let him down, and right now it tells him that this is a bad idea. But Chen assures that everything will be fine, because he has an excellent teacher, and he knows that if you adapt in time and keep your concentration, then everything will be fine. After all, unlike competitions, in real life there is no way to prepare in advance, so you have to improvise. At one point, the host announced that the hero was now coming on stage. The crowd burst into applause. He was now very popular, and Wei asked him to be as careful as possible. Everyone present immediately noticed that he was now wearing the uniform of the Southern Schools Association. People supported the guy and wished him good luck. After this, the presenter announced the second fighter. Today he was a man from the same training camp as the Iron Wolf. His name was Douglas. This was an unknown boxer, but Chen simply could not believe his eyes when he saw his opponent, what it all meant. It turned out to be his new friend Isai. As it turned out, he had not one prosthesis, but 4. instead of both arms and both legs he had iron mechanisms. At the same time, the guy with dreadlocks looked quite cheerful. He, as usual, greeted his bro with a smile on his face, and so they saw each other again. Tang Jiang also came to this fight. He was very interested in looking at the winner of the last battle. Apparently he knew Isai and was surprised that the guy showed up in such a place. Also, two of his friends came to him. Their names were Susie and Fang Xiaowan. A man with blue hair greeted them. It was clear that he was happy to see them. Tang Jiang was surprised how the girls managed to find him, but in fact it was a secret. They would never have thought that he liked this kind of thing. But everyone has a hobby, and he doesn't have to like what his father likes. All people are individual. This time the man with blue hair invites his girlfriends to place a bet on today's match. One of them agrees, but only on the condition that if she wins, he will marry one of them. Tang Jiang thought that even though this was a marriage of convenience, he still did not mind marrying a woman with the same interests as him. Fan Xiaowan chooses the hero as the contender for victory, and her friend with purple hair chooses another fighter, simply because she does not want to repeat after her. And at some point Susie pays attention to Chen. She seems to be very interested in something. For some reason, it seemed to the girl that she had seen this man before. He seemed familiar to her. Meanwhile, the opponents had already climbed into the ring and were waiting for the match to start. It was about to start. The presenter finally turned to the guys and recommended that they beat without regret and not ask for mercy. Now they need to get ready. And after a few seconds the referee shouted about the start of the battle. The boxers immediately rushed into battle. The hero looked more active than his opponent. He quickly closed the distance. It seemed they wanted to quickly take the initiative. Isai did not expect such speed from his new friend, although he had to train with him before, but this was the first time he saw this from him. However, the foreigner was also an unusual fighter. He easily managed to block a punch from the guy, and after that he asked Chen to cool down a little. Besides, his blow turned out to be somehow too weak. The problem was that Isai now knew his opponent's tricks. Immediately after parrying the attack, the guy with dreadlocks instantly performed a quick and deft kick. He managed to hit the target directly. The attack hit the hero directly in the face, causing him to take a few steps back. Now it became clear to Chen that this foreigner's fighting style was definitely not fist fighting. A couple of days ago he simply lied to him. Isai, meanwhile, did not lose his grip and immediately rushed into another attack. His speed this time was several times higher than when they sparred. Chen with difficulty, but still blocks the hook with his opponent's right hand. Now he needs to be as concentrated as possible. Suddenly the guy with dreadlocks does something completely incredible. As soon as his hand was blocked, he immediately jumped several meters up. As a result, Isai found himself behind Chen and once again kicked him in the chest area with all his might. Now the hero was at a very disadvantage, because his enemy knew many of his techniques, but he, on the contrary, had no idea what to expect from a foreigner. But standing still is also not an option, so you need to try to do at least something. So Chen kicks. The guy with dreadlocks did not have time to react to this attack. To be honest, this blow was already stronger than the first. The spectators watched with interest what was happening. Although this foreigner has a strange fighting style, he seemed to be a serious opponent. Wei asked Shenu what this guy with prosthetics has such a strange technique. He has never seen anything like this before. Most likely, this fighting style is completely wild, in which legs and arms are beaten at the same time. It was similar to a war dance. But there is too little information about this. Now the guy will have to get out of the situation and improvise. Chen asked Isai who he really was, and he replied that he had already heard everything from the referee. His name was Douglas and he was from a group of black killers. However, why did he need to ingratiate himself with the hero? But the answer turned out to be obvious, of course, to explore all his skills. How else would he be able to learn about the skill of his legs and his amazing ability to learn, if not directly on the battlefield? Now the guy had a huge advantage, because his opponent had not yet adapted to the fighting style. The hero was actually very upset, because he considered this guy with prosthetics to be a real friend. Was it all just acting? Isai was funny listening to this. How can people become good friends in 3 days? This brat was too naive. Chen, finally convinced that this is all a lie, decides to use the newly learned technique. He uses his special style. Because of this, the guy began to move so quickly that his opponent did not even have time to follow his movements. The hero seemed to be in several places at the same time. And after that, he suddenly appeared right in front of Isai. Now the guy wanted to fulfill his life's credo: the one who gives him a drop of water, he will return the whole ocean. After all, even though they knew each other for only 3 days and all they had were trivial things, the hero treated this man as a friend. That is why he cannot allow anyone to break his life principles. The foreigner will pay for it. The crowd was very excited. They really liked what was happening. Right now the winner of the last fight again used his signature move. Isai, just like the Iron Wolf in the last match, fell to the floor from a great height. The guy hit his whole body, but this time something was different. Chen felt a strange sensation in his hands. His opponent said with a grin on his face that somehow he was hitting his hands too hard. The guy with dreadlocks turned out to be stronger than the Iron Wolf. After a few seconds he manages to get to his feet. He praises the hero for such techniques. But the guy didn't want to listen to the traitor at all. He wanted to get rid of him as quickly as possible. In fact, this was not at all easy to do. It seemed that the foreigner had endless endurance. Even after such a fall he moved exactly the same as before. In addition, his fighting style remained as wild and unknown as at the very beginning of the fight. This time he grabbed the ropes and stood on them with his feet. Isai was going to do something unique right now. The guy believed that all this talk about honor and life principles is meaningless when you are in the ring. And a second later he jumped straight at the hero and hit him in the face with his knee with all his might. Only at the last moment Chen managed to cover himself with his hands. This attack was incredibly powerful, causing the guy to slide several meters back across the ring. The foreigner made it clear that he entered this ring not to talk, but to fight to the death. After all, when you are on the battlefield, nothing matters except victory. Chen agrees with his opponent, but despite the fact that the main thing in the ring is to win, you still always need to remain human. That is why he wants to beat the liar opposite him thoroughly. This will not interfere with his moral principles. At this moment, the fighters realize that they have lost quite a lot of strength. They need to come up with some kind of plan as soon as possible. Therefore, both boxers decide that from now on they need to fight at full strength. Let the stronger one win. Suddenly the hero gets a strange feeling. For some reason it became clear to him that his opponent has only 2 weak points. As it turned out, his double suggested this to him, but it is worth remembering that the body of this foreigner was subject to numerous modifications. There was too little time to think, because right now Isai rushed into another attack. The guy with dreadlocks kicked, but Chen managed to parry this blow with his technique. Suddenly his inner voice shows that the danger is from above. The foreigner used his fighting style for the second time. His first blow was just a distraction, and all the power was actually put into the second leg. Only thanks to his unique ability, the hero was able to dodge and carry out his counterattack, but his opponent also managed to dodge. Isai jumped to the other end of the ring. He got dressed so that he could be safe here for some time. However, this was not the case at all. Chen put all his efforts into getting close to his opponent and hitting him right at his weak spot. In the end, everything turned out to be not so simple at all. Instead of a successful attack, the hero felt some strange sensation inside himself. Even his double noticed it. And the foreigner, instead of writhing in pain, took a stance, and some strange sounds, similar to clicks, began to be heard from his body. At some point, the last click sounded, after which Isai stuck his chest forward. Thus he managed to throw Chen away. The guy flew so far that he ended up in the opposite corner of the arena. He could barely stand on his feet. Things were bad. The hero put a lot of his spiritual energy into this blow. His strength was running out, and all his muscles were shaking. But from the outside everything looked very cool. Wei did not expect that his friend was so capable. If this continues, then perhaps he will be able to emerge victorious. Shenu, in turn, understood that even though her student was making amazingly fast progress, he had already spent his hidden powers, but the enemy was just beginning to spend them. And even more so, with regard to physical capabilities, the hero is several times weaker than his opponent. Wei was very upset by the information he had just heard, but it was stupid to deny it. The opponent is really incredibly strong. It turns out that if the enemy continues in the same spirit, then Chen will not have the strength to continue. Despite his excellent kung fu, he will lose. At some point, his inner voice turns to the guy and says that Isai's secret is to learn yoga. this allows him to protect his weak points. The hero thought that he simply didn't hit hard enough, but everything turned out to be much more complicated. The double tells him that if he had hit a little worse, then it would be Chen who would be dead now. After that, the fight continued. The advantage in it was on the side of the foreigner, and Chen should just keep his distance for now. The guy with dreadlocks realized that his opponent seemed to have already studied his special places. He needed to finish as soon as possible. After one of the blows, the hero's right hand broke. The situation became worse and worse every minute. The voice insists that now is not the time to hesitate. He must make an important decision for himself right this second. Suddenly Chen sees an opportunity to strike at his opponent's weak point. He quickly directs his palm to this place. It was not at all easy to carry out an attack in this place. Even after putting a lot of effort into this attack, he failed. Isai right now wants to break his opponent's arm in several places. Thanks to his mechanical prosthetics he can easily do this. The heroes manage to react to this. He manages to jump up and use his legs to spread the foreigner's arms to the sides. And after that, he hit the guys on the head with all his might. Only by miracle did he manage to get out of that stalemate. Chen understands that his opponent has already spent a lot of effort. Perhaps he still has a chance to win. However, they still remained scanty. An inner voice says that in this state he will not be able to break through Isai's defense. Therefore, now the guy must make an important decision, because if this continues, he may die. In the end, the hero makes up his mind and puts his body under the complete control of his second self. The double promises to win this fight at all costs. Once again the boxers fought in a fist fight. Chen did everything that his inner voice advised him. Now he managed to block the blow with his right hand. And after that, he used all his adrenaline from the pain to increase the strength of his left arm as much as possible. This was indeed very effective. The next step would be to throw the opponent off balance. To do this it would be worth hitting the knees with all your might. The foreigner felt in danger and decided to slow down for now. He needed to expand the distance. After this, Isai immediately rushes forward in an attempt to touch the hero with his foot, but he fails. The foreigner continued his series of attacks. He managed to effectively combine the art of yoga and his style. Even when he opened himself up for attack, Chen was unable to touch him. He possessed both enormous strength and incredible speed. The hero now understood that if it were not for his unique ability, he would have lost this battle long ago. The guy with dreadlocks noticed that his opponent remembered absolutely all his movements. He could not continue to use a unique attack every time. After all, although he has a lot of different techniques in his arsenal, he has already used almost everything he knows. By this time, the first round had already come to an end. If one of them wants to end the fight quickly, then he should hurry up. The foreigner decides to use one of his most powerful blows, and Chen's inner voice tells him that if he misses this blow, he will die. The hero no longer had time to dodge, so he directs almost all his remaining strength into his right leg to parry this attack. In the end, he succeeds, but now, in addition to his arm, one leg is also very badly damaged. Besides, Isai still got to him. After all, he was still in a much more advantageous position and could afford to hit with both his hands and feet. After missing punches, Chen flies several meters away and hits one of the corners of the arena. The fans couldn't believe their eyes. How could this happen? They could see the smoke right now after these blows. Wei and Shenu were very worried about their comrade. They shouted to him that it was best to raise the white flag right now. Suddenly the girl received a call from her assistant. She had just managed to find quite a lot of information about this guy with dreadlocks. But it seems to Shenu that this no longer makes any sense, because this data was needed before the start of the battle. However, Tora insisted that there was a lot of interesting things here, and even after the battle it all needed to be studied in as much detail as possible. Isai tells his opponent that, unfortunately, there is one reason why he has no right to lose today. If the hero wanted to finish off the foreigner, then he should have done it much earlier, but now it is too late. Chen at that moment felt his strength leaving him. Everything swam before his eyes and he lost consciousness. His inner voice orders him to come to his senses. Is there really nothing to fight for? And his motivation is weaker than that of a guy with dreadlocks. Isai uses his latest unique move. He jumps high into the air and wants to end this fight right now. At the same moment, the hero grabs the rope. Everyone around was sure that in this way he just wants to run away and give up. The foreigner stopped, because if he won this battle, then there was no point in wasting any more energy. Paul watched all this and was happy. This brat made the right choice, so at least he can survive, unlike his reputation. However, Chen did not even think about running away from the ring. It turned out to be one of his new techniques. His enemies were in shock. The guy pushed off the ropes and flew forward. It was similar to the technique that Tan Song used against him. At this moment, the hero felt a new source of strength within himself, and his second self suggested that he needed to concentrate well. He managed to learn a unique technique from one of his opponents after a single fight. His gift for learning was simply incredible. Isai could only go with the flow. He had already spent too much energy and did not have time to move aside. He didn't even have enough reaction to cover himself from this attack with his mechanical prostheses. As a result, the hero's blow hit him right in the back of the head. This attack was so powerful that it slammed the foreigner into the floor of the ring. He could hardly rise to his feet. It was clear from his face that although he was in a lot of pain, he was not going to give up. He still had strength. The guy had the feeling that now his leg was broken in several places. Was that really not enough? Everyone around was shocked. Apparently this guy was made entirely of steel. How could he survive such a powerful attack? Isai decides to make his final blow. He puts his hands on the floor and begins to squeeze it with all his might. The hero's inner voice tells him that after this technique his opponent will have absolutely no strength left. This position of the foreigner was required for acceleration. Right at that moment he was rushing with incredible speed with his fists to the advantage towards Chen. It seemed to Wei that she needed to immediately dodge this, but the girl thought otherwise. If you do this, then the guy with dreadlocks will still have a chance. Right now, her student must perform the best shot of his life. If he fails to take advantage of the moment, he will lose. The hero is already very exhausted, yet he managed to master a unique blow right during the battle. This requires a huge expenditure of energy. Chen understood perfectly well that this moment would be decisive. His inner voice prompted him to act. To do this, you first need to block the enemy's attack. As a result, the hero's right arm bones were broken in several places. Now you need to apply absolutely all your remaining strength into one single blow. This is the only way to come out of here victorious. The hero was completely concentrated. In his head there were only thoughts about how to direct the greatest amount of energy into his left fist. And he succeeds. The blow hit the spot. The foreigner's ribs broke. This was one of his weak points. After this, he will definitely not be able to continue the fight, because the damage was so enormous that his internal organs were severely damaged. Chen expended so much energy on his attack that it left behind a huge amount of hot steam. Isai could not believe what had just happened before his eyes. Before, not a single person in the world had been able to repel this technique. But everything was really like that. The guy with dreadlocks was not upset at all. It even seemed to him that for a moment he felt real friendship. After this, the foreigner turned to the leader and said that he wanted to surrender, and this was the end of their confrontation. The presenter could only climb into the ring and announce the winner. Tonight ended with the triumph of the hero. However, the audience was unhappy with this. They really liked the fight, but why did its ending turn out to be so boring? Why did Isai give up? Many people thought that this fight was a setup and everything went according to the script, but it didn't really matter. Fang Xiaowan was delighted. Today she guessed correctly with the choice of the winner. Now she is entitled to a reward. Susie actually doesn't mind at all. Perhaps this dispute will finally solve their family's fight about marrying Tang Jiang. The man with the hair looked quite calm. Apparently now he will really have to marry this girl. He was much more interested in the outcome of the fight. Was it luck or a brilliant plan? A newcomer like Chen simply cannot use such techniques. After the fight, Isai helped the hero go out to the locker room. Chen asked if the foreigner would most likely want to take revenge on him, but the guy with dreadlocks insisted that no, it was insulting to his honor. At that moment the guy realized that the opponent was not such a bad person. Most likely he was forced to do so by circumstances, after which the hero loses consciousness. Shenu calls for a squad of doctors. Her student needs to be placed in the medical office as soon as possible, and anesthesia needs to be injected right now. The girl admired her student. Today he was simply amazing. The guy exceeded all her expectations. After some time, there was talk in the medical ward that if Chen continued in the same spirit, he would definitely become one of the chosen ones. As it turned out, it was Isai who spoke. It was a little strange that he was here, but the guy with dreadlocks just wanted to treat his friend with food. Shenu clearly didn't like this. She was angry at this man for beating the hero. He should run back to his camp. Wei was very worried about his comrade. The guy was still unconscious, but there was no danger to his life now. After a month of bed rest he would be fine. However, exactly a month later he has a fight scheduled for the third round. Will he be able to recover before that moment, or will he miss the fight? The girl, with her stern appearance and glasses, made it clear that this match was not so important. It would not be a big deal if the guy missed it. After this, the doctor ordered everyone present to leave the room. Now the patient needs a good rest. A few hours later, evening came. The foreigner was sitting on the windowsill and looking at the stars, and at that moment the director of the organization approached him. The next morning the hero woke up, although he looked quite tired, but overall he felt pretty good. His friends were nearby all the time and were very happy when they saw that he opened his eyes. Chen asked his friend what exactly happened to him, because he does not remember anything after his last blow. As it turned out, there was bad news for him. Firstly, his little sister found out about her injuries. Because of this the girl went into a rage. It was scary to even think about it. But in fact, this was not the worst thing. At that moment the guys were arguing, should also tell the guy the whole truth. As a result, Tora asked the patient for the last time if he was sure that he wanted to hear this information. Chen replied that he was ready for anything. Now that no claims can be made against her, the nurse could show all the information she managed to find. All this data concerned his opponent in the last match. There was complete information that can be had about Isai. It turned out that this guy was born into a poor African family. No one knows his real name. Isai was a pseudonym. He grew up in terrible conditions. People started massive fights every day just to get some food on their table. Isai turned out to be the strongest and most talented child in the entire village. Thanks to this he managed to get himself some food. One day, completely by chance, his enormous potential was discovered by the camp to which the Iron Wolf and the Mad Dog belonged. The leaders of the organization invited him to join their group. In return they promised to save his family, even the whole village. The guy agreed without hesitation. Such a chance comes only once in a lifetime. Besides, it was unknown what would happen in case of refusal. In combat school, he ended up in the most brutal unit called the Shadow Assassins. Isai went through hell when he trained with them, but still held on for the sake of his family. Chen was shocked by this information. Only now he found out that someone had specially sent this man to deal with him. In addition, the organization to which the foreigner belonged was one of the most mysterious and powerful in the whole world. The Secret Hand of the Death Camp, which specializes in carrying out difficult fights. They always do everything for the sake of victory. There were rumors that their special feature was special body modifiers. They were a variety of devices. Now the guys could see that this was true, because the guy with dreadlocks had mechanical prosthetics instead of arms and legs. They even said that they took power from another world. But this was most likely just fiction. It looks like the nurse needs to stop watching too many movies. But the hero was not so categorical, because he knew that the other world definitely exists. Perhaps it has something to do with his sister. Further events take us a few years ago. On that day Isai received terrible injuries while performing one of the tasks. His entire body was covered in deep cuts, and some limbs were missing, but he still continued to smile, because he was still able to complete the mission. The boss praised him. This time the man will send his family even more money, and the guy really doesn't need anything else. One of the doctors asked the boss if Isai would still be able to carry out the tasks, and the man in the suit was surprised by this question. Of course he could. Right at that moment, several workers brought a fresh batch of some unusual substance. It was some kind of liquid similar to mercury. Most likely it is the material for special modules that modify the body. A few days later, the man visited Isai in the hospital. The guy was severely mutilated. The only thing he wanted now was to see his family. But unfortunately, during the mission, he lost both arms and one leg. In this condition it was impossible. That is why the guy decides to take radical measures. He agrees to modify his own body. He was informed that it was not too late to refuse, and if he changed his mind, then this was the last chance. But Isai had already decided everything. Such procedures were incredibly painful, but Isai was determined to see his family at least one more time. The operation was successful and soon the guy was training to control his new body. Now his blows became even stronger. He was very quickly able to master his new prostheses, even learning to box. The man in the suit asked how he felt in this state. Isai replied that he liked this body much more than the previous one. He could even control the force of his blows and change the flow of his breath, which allowed him to concentrate much better during the fight. But everything has its downsides. The guy understood perfectly well that because of such manipulations, he now had very little time left. Isai immediately felt that after the operation there was something wrong with his heart. It was simply not designed for such loads, so his life would not last long. His boss apologized to the guy. He blamed himself for everything, because he did not foresee such circumstances. After all, it was an experimental option. And now, although he will be able to walk again, he has little time left due to the deadly side effects of the prosthetics. According to the calculations of the doctors who performed the operation, Isai now has about 5 years left, after which his body will cease to function normally. The guy was shocked by this information, but was not very upset. After all, he was a killer, his life could have ended at any moment, so he decides to take on another task. One of the workers asked the man in the suit if they still needed to keep a specimen like this guy around. The boss made it clear with all his appearance that even if it was an unsuccessful product, it should be used while there was such an opportunity. The man also ordered the engineers to be told that this type of extraterrestrial material was not suitable for human modifications. Something else had to be found. Over the following years, Isai took mission after mission in search of money. No one really knew how much he actually earned, but he kept very little for himself. After all, he had a dream, and to fulfill it he had to stain his hands up to his elbows in blood. He dreamed more than anything in the world to see his family happy. Having completed the next mission, Isai was happy, because this time he was transferred a little more money, but all his thoughts were about home. The guy immediately called his boss and asked for another task. This time he needed to deal with a guy named Chen. Isai agreed, but warned the man that after this mission he wanted to finish and return home, because he had very little time left. Therefore, more than anything else, he wants to spend his remaining time with his family. The boss agrees to such conditions, but for this the guy must successfully complete this task and win the boxing match. It turns out that no matter how the fight ended, Isai would still have died. Because of this fact the hero was a little upset. The foreigner also left a letter for Chen. They found it on his desk this morning. To be honest, his handwriting is just terrible. The friends decide to leave the guy alone, so Shenu has to pull his assistant out by the ears, because the girl was too curious. Chen was very upset after hearing this. The fate of this man seemed incredibly sad to him. Did he really deserve this? The hero opened the letter. First of all, Isai apologizes for his handwriting and asks not to pay attention to it. In fact, he wanted to tell quite a lot. The foreigner argued that most likely when Chen reads this letter, he will already be dead. The hero should become even stronger, because bad people will definitely come to kill him. There was one last thing. They were not friends. The guy just approached the guy in order to find out information that he could use. That is why they will never see each other again. An inner voice told Chen that the person who wrote this letter was lying, so he wanted to weaken the hero's vigilance and end him once and for all. But the guy was sure that Isai wanted to protect him and thus warned him of the impending danger, but I did not agree with the second. In any case, this argument did not make any sense. They will have to become stronger in any case. They still have a lot to do. When the guy with dreadlocks was captured, he was first severely beaten in an attempt to find out why he did not complete his task and eliminate the target. The whole reason was that Chen considered Isai his friend until the very end. He tried to spare him even in his last minutes, and he may be naive, but he was not short of kindness. Therefore, the foreigner simply showed him the respect he deserved, like a real fighter, but the director reminds him that he is not a fighter at all, but a hired killer. Isai understood that today his life would end, so he did not see the point in these conversations. He simply plunged into his memories of his home. Paul, looking at him with an incredibly angry look, tried to figure out if he had really given up his last chance to see his family just for this brat. However, the guy wasn't even sure whether the time he had left would be enough to travel home. Perhaps there was no point in this. The director and his secretary are leaving the foreigner alive for now. Now they needed to carry out Plan B. Its performance was scheduled for tonight, but they had to not overdo it, because they needed to maintain at least some kind of relationship with the Southern Association. The men also talked about some special product that should arrive no later than in 3 months. Now they need to finish the business with Isai. They were going to do everything as usual. They wanted to play with this guy a little more. The foreigner was tired of hanging on chains for so long, so he tried to get out, but nothing worked. The guards advised him not to waste his time. These chains were specially designed to restrain him. He should just quietly spend the rest of his days here. The organization decided to get rid of him as soon as he was no longer useful to them, which is truly the fate of a true killer. However, something deep in Isai's soul still continued to resist. He still didn't want to die here. The guy turned to the guards and asked if he really couldn't get out of here. One of the men with a grin on his face confirmed these words. Of course he couldn't. He even wanted to bet money. However, the guy suddenly grabbed the links and squeezed them with all his might. Due to the enormous pressure, the metal could not stand it and cracked into pieces. As a result, Isai was freed. Now the guard owes him money, but the man only pointed his gun at him. Alas, ordinary people could not resist a person like this guy. He easily managed to neutralize the guard. The second man was very scared and decided that the most important thing in this situation was to survive, so he releases a whole clip towards Isai. However, nothing works for him. All the bullets bounce off the metal prostheses, and his weapon turns out to be useless. The guy with the dreadlocks laughed. Didn't his boss tell these fools that conventional weapons against him are just garbage? As a result of this, the second guard was also neutralized. Now Isai received hope that he would be able to do something last. He also took a special key with which he can get out of this cell. But as soon as the guy crossed the threshold, he was immediately attacked by a crowd of people with weapons. This surprised him very much. Do they really have no other job and have to run after some former mercenary? They won't succeed anyway, because they have no idea what Isai's abilities are. They will never be able to catch him. The guy masterfully uses one of his unique techniques, as a result of which the air becomes very hot. After this, the others felt a huge heat around them. They could not understand where it was coming from. One of them realized that all this energy came from the friction between the blows of this person and the air. Thus, Isai was able to neutralize all these people with one move. Now no one will interfere with him. A few minutes later he was able to get to the surface. Now it was deep night outside, and a huge beautiful moon was visible in the sky. Suddenly the guy notices a girl. It was immediately clear that she was an unusual person. From her look it became clear that the stranger was a killer. The guy with dreadlocks noticed her and immediately realized that she was heading towards Chen to kill him, so he needed to save his friend. Meanwhile, the hero was having dinner with his friend in one of the nearby cafes. He needed to eat as best as possible to heal his bones. He asked Wei how his sister was doing now. Because he couldn't see her, his friend replied that the girl was too angry with him, so she didn't want to come. The second person asked Chen who Linka was to him, perhaps his mother or his wife, but the guy replied that she was his sister. The hero thanked his comrade for looking after the girl, because he also has a lot of things to do, but Wei is only happy. The unusual girl was already next to them. She looked at her watch and was already preparing to attack, but Isai stopped her. The stranger did not react in any way. The killer was going to finish everything quickly with the help of one dagger. The foreigner didn't expect this at all. If he really couldn't save the guy, he needed to come up with something urgently. Isai has to jump forward straight into the abyss. This is the only way he can repel the throwing weapons and save the hero. Only by miracle does the guy manage to grab the edge of a multi-story building at the last moment. Now he almost crashes. After this, the foreigner immediately went upstairs. It seems that he himself was very scared. Usually in such situations, people first ask why he came here, but this girl simply remained silent. She just said that not everyone here is a killer. Her mission was to kill her target, so why is this guy stopping her? The stranger recognized Isai and asked why he betrayed them, because the organization gave him everything he now has and helped his family. But the foreigner does not agree that he betrayed someone. He just knows more about his body than anyone else, so he wants to protect someone before death. After all, his friend respects the principles of life, unlike the money-greedy boss who thinks only about profit. The girl understands that a fight with him is inevitable, so she decides to attack first and takes a step forward with incredible speed. At the last moment, Isai manages to block her blow with his hand. Now he faces the last battle of his life. After this, the stranger tried to hit him in the leg, but this time the guy managed to parry his rival's attack. Moreover, he managed to grab the girl by the leg and hit her with all his strength on the concrete floor. Because of this, the opponent was unbalanced. She needed some time to recover, but it seems Isai did not want to give such an opportunity. He wanted to end the fight as soon as possible and he tried to finish off his opponent with a kick. But at some point the girl simply disappeared from the place where she was a moment ago. The guy hit an empty place. And a few seconds later, the stranger also suddenly appeared and grabbed the guy's neck with her legs. He was caught in the grip. The foreigner tried his best to resist, yet his physical strength was his main advantage. However, the girl was a real professional. Thanks to her dexterity she was able to put her opponent in a hopeless position. Isai wouldn't last that long. He couldn't continue the fight in such a situation. He needed to come up with something urgently. To get out of a difficult situation, the guy heats his body to the maximum temperature. This will allow him to free himself. His opponent had to loosen her grip. Isai immediately took advantage of the opportunity and punched her in the face. She was surprised at how much this man wants to survive, and the guy believes that there are never too many ways to save your life. In this case, the girl will use her main weapon. To do this, she needs to remove the gloves from her hands. After all, there are never too many ways to kill a person. Its main feature is its poisonous skin. Having assessed the situation, the guy comes to the conclusion that in this situation he most likely cannot win. Now he is too weak. But the situation forced him to fight to the last. He must win even if this is impossible. So Isai rushes forward and tries to punch his opponent, but she easily dodges and jumps over him. It was enough for the girl to cut her opponent's skin once for her poison to start working. In this position she had an advantage. At the same time, the stranger also had enormous physical power. With just one movement she broke the guy's wrist and again caught him in a grip. The mercenary right now wanted to pierce Isai's eye. If she succeeded, then her enemy would have no chance of salvation. But the guy tries with all his might to evade. To do this he falls to the ground in an attempt to free himself. As a result, the stranger is indicated under him, and he once again manages to get out of her grasp. However, things were bad. It seems that at some point the girl managed to leave a scratch on Isai's face. As it turned out, she took off the shoes from her feet and it was with the help of them that she was able to hit her opponent. The guy admired the skills of his rival. If it weren't for her poisonous body, he would have gladly fought with her all day. His rival remarks that a beautiful flower always has thorns. She was not interested in talking about it. She rushes forward in the hope of finally finishing off the enemy, but Isai spends his last strength just to stall for as much time as possible. What made the situation even worse was that the mercenary had already guessed about his weak points. They had not yet healed from his previous fight. This allowed the stranger to dominate throughout the entire battle. The foreigner could only continue to try to resist. At some point, he notices that his vision has deteriorated greatly. Everything is blurred before his eyes. Now everything is too bad. Did Isai think he could block her poison with his mechanical prosthetics? There was no way it would work. The guy already knew this very well. It's just that the situation forced him to take desperate measures. He just wanted to try. And now Isai is going to put all his energy into the final blow. For this he will use his special technique. There was so much energy that even the clothes on his hands were shredded. Perhaps the mercenary was in great danger. The guy sent all his strength to his hands. In fact, throughout the entire fight he saved up his energy for this moment. However, the girl was not going to just stand still. She believed that this would not work against her. The mercenary goes around her opponent from the side and uses the scorpion sting technique. Now this fight must end. Unfortunately, Isai did not keep up with the movements of his rival, as a result of which his chest was pierced right to the heart. It looks like he lost this confrontation. Did he really fail to fulfill any of his dying wishes? When the girl was about to leave, she suddenly heard a voice behind her. Somehow the guy was still able to move. His body stood on its feet only thanks to enormous willpower, because a huge amount of poison acted on it. Isai was going to continue the fight. He had nothing to lose. This was his last task in this world. He rushes forward and kicks the mercenary. She couldn't understand why this man couldn't just turn away from his stupid desires and just die. The guy just wanted to remain human and repay Chen for respecting him and treating him like a true friend, even though the guy was as naive as a child. However, he no longer has any strength left. The mercenary knocks him down with her technique and sits on top. she casts doubt on the fact that the hero is really such a wonderful person. But if this is true, then Isai deserves to die in peace. The girl asks to let her send the guy to the next world without pain. To do this, she kisses him on the lips and releases a huge amount of a powerful toxin into his body. This will allow the foreigner not to feel pain. At that moment, Chen and his comrade ran to the roof of the building. They had already called the police. Wei didn't fully understand how the hero guessed that something was happening here, but the guy explained everything with simple intuition. But in fact, an inner voice told him, although he was greatly weakened by the previous battle, the energy emanating from this fight is very strong. Suddenly Chen sees his comrade lying on the ground. He did not move and his eyes were closed. It was not clear whether he was alive or not. Fortunately, he was still conscious. It seemed to him that the hero had come here to finish him off. He explained his condition by a showdown within the organization. But the guy already understood everything. Isai obviously wanted to protect him from the killer's attack, and because of this, he shortened his last hours of life even more. The foreigner decided not to lie and advised the guy to count as he wanted. The last thing he wanted to give was one gift. This is a key card to the secret laboratory of their organization. He won it today in a private dispute. The hero could use it as he sees fit. After that, Isai said goodbye to his only friend, and unfortunately he did not have the strength to speak anymore. He calmly closed his eyes and left this world. The next day, the mercenary was sitting in the director's office. Her name was BG. She calmly drank juice and listened to the man swear with his superiors. Paul could not understand whether the organization of black assassins could not send a normal person who could cope with his task. Right during the telephone conversation, one of the employees came into the director's office and said that Douglas' body had been discovered without any fanfare. But Paul chased the man away. Now he was not at all interested. It seemed the man was incredibly angry. The man in the suit was called Mori. He didn't know what happened to Isai, but the girl can do this depending on her mood. Most likely, BG was just upset about something, and because of this, she no longer wanted to continue with her task. She had to come to terms with it. The boss was tired of arguing with the director, because if you do not take into account age, then he and the girl had the same position in the organization. Therefore, Paul has no right to shout to the older man on the phone. The man was very angry and he simply hung up the phone. Because of this, the director was literally on edge, and BG asked for help preparing the room. She would have to stay here for a while. After that, she leaves and leaves the man alone with his thoughts. Paul still hasn't calmed down. He wanted to take out his anger on something. A series of failures had greatly damaged the reputation of his school, and he could not do anything about it, and the management was also acting so arrogantly. If he did not hold this position, he would gladly deal with the hero on his own. Someday the time will come and he will definitely do it. After this event, we are transported to a private island where the Su family estate is located. A girl arrived right here in an expensive car. It was Susie. The first person who met her was her grandfather. He asked his granddaughter if the school holidays had really started. And the girl asked the old man how he was feeling, whether the condition of his legs had improved, but unfortunately, due to his age, it was no longer possible to correct much. Susie did not agree with this, because medical technology has now developed very much. There will definitely be a way to cure her grandfather's legs. At one point, the old man got tired of talking about his poor health. He was more interested in how much problems his granddaughter was bringing to his father. Susie told her grandfather that she recently went to a very spectacular fight with her classmate, and the elderly man could not understand what was so interesting about watching the fight. The girl asks not to take this too seriously, because such competitions are just entertainment for spectators. Mainly it allows organizations to earn money. All this seems too boring, because a truly interesting fight can only be shown by fighters who have a well-developed personal direction. His granddaughter claimed that she saw just such a person that evening. Right during the battle, he was able to master a completely new technique for himself. This man's name was Chen. The elderly man couldn't believe it. Had the martial organization changed its rules, this usually doesn't happen. Besides, Grandpa has never heard of this guy, so he doesn't take Susie's words seriously. Maybe she just imagined it. The girl does not intend to argue with the old man, so she simply recommends that he attend such an event himself if he is so skeptical. The hero, meanwhile, continued to recover in the hospital. He just sneezed. does anyone really remember him now? Shenu learned from a telephone conversation that the organization had found Isai's body. After all, it was better for them not to interfere in this situation. The guy still blamed himself for the fact that his friend sacrificed his own life to save him, because he really wanted to see his family. At this moment, his inner voice wondered if perhaps Chen wanted to avenge his comrade, in which case he was happy to help. But in fact, all this sounded very stupid, because Isai had tried to kill him before, so why was the hero so upset about his death? The reason was that a living person died, and also because of him, so Chen simply could not continue to behave as if nothing had happened. A voice in his head noticed that the foreigner sacrificed himself only because he would have died soon anyway, so there was no point in the owner being so sad about him. Chen is already very tired of this conversation. The speech of his clone greatly humiliated the man who sacrificed his life for him, but the spirit believes that he was simply stating a fact. The second thing I recommend is that the guy think carefully about this. If the hero had been strong enough, he would not have met him in the arena, because if no one had tried to kill him, then Isai would never have met him. The guy already agreed with this, so he had only one path. He needed to look for any ways to improve his skills and gain new strength. If he manages to become even more powerful, then he will be able to stop being afraid that someone will try to kill him or his loved ones. This is the only way he can protect the people dear to him. Suddenly Wei runs into his room and tells him very bad news. His little sister has just been hospitalized in very serious condition. Her brother immediately ran to the department where Linka was taken. His comrade blamed himself for what happened, but in fact he could not influence it. Chen first asked the doctor about the girl's condition. At that moment it was stable, but unfortunately the doctors are unable to find the cause of the disease. And in general the situation is very bad. If everything continues like this, then Link will not last even a week. The guys were allowed to check on the girl, but she had not woken up yet, and under no circumstances should she be disturbed. When the friends entered the room, the sister was lying unconscious with an oxygen mask on her face, and it was clear from her face that she was in great pain. Wei looked at his friend and realized that he needed to be alone with his little sister, so he said that he would wait for him outside. As soon as the friend did this, a snowflake immediately appeared. She was completely fine, but unfortunately the same could not be said about the girl. The hero tried to reassure his second sister. He promised her that Linka would definitely get better soon and they could go home. Suddenly the snowflake announced that she wanted Chen to kill her. The guy was shocked by such words. What does this even mean? The thing was that the snowflake blamed herself for what happened. Perhaps the little ghost sucked all her energy. If not for her, everything would have been fine. Therefore, the little sister, with tears in her eyes, asks her older brother to get rid of her, because they had no other choice. But the hero cannot do this. He promised himself that he would definitely save everyone who is dear to him. Chen leaves the room and promises that he will definitely come up with something. Even at the cost of his life he will save his sisters. The guy immediately called Shenu on the phone. He wanted to know if that brilliant doctor had returned to the country. It turned out that he was still abroad. Wei tried to support his comrade as best he could. He assured that everything would be fine with his sister, but the guy simply asked to leave him alone. Hanging the entire burden on yourself is very harmful. The hero needs to find a way to finally cure the girl as soon as possible. There was very little time, and Chen still had no idea what to do, whether he would really have to make this terrible choice and get rid of the snowflake. Suddenly he heard his inner voice again. His second question was whether the owner had completely forgotten about him, but he knew how to cure Linka. The hero didn't believe it at first, but the voice assured that it was true, and besides, if everything is done correctly, the snowflake will not receive any harm either. But to do this, they first need to return home, and they also need to buy a few things along the way. After some time, evening came. The guy was at home. The things that needed to be bought were paints, several paint brushes and paper. Huadian was also an important element. To tell the truth, Chen still highly doubted that it would really help, but an inner voice asked him to trust him. At some point, this strange bright hieroglyph lit up on the cat's head again. It should become one of the elements in solving the cause of the disease. This time, after an unusual sign appeared above the animal's head, some kind of pictogram appeared, as well as several scrolls with inscriptions. At the same time, even the hero's second self had no idea where Huadian came from and what she really was, but her spells should work. These spells were scrolls with inscriptions. The guy thought that he just needed to copy the inscriptions onto the paper he had just purchased, but it turned out to be not so simple. In fact, the paper didn't really matter. All the power of these spells was in the aura around them. Ordinary people cannot sense her, let alone have any contact with her, but Chen was not an ordinary person. Right now he needs to use his talent and redirect the aura from one of these magical scrolls to his own piece of paper. This can be compared to how Chen managed to use special energy in the last fight. This is what proved the guy's special abilities. Now if the inner voice will help him, they must definitely cope with this task. They should start right now. The hero confidently took the brush in his hands and for the first time tried to repeat the inscription from the scroll. But suddenly it caught fire. The guy had no idea why this happened. He seemed to be doing everything exactly the same as last time. As it turned out, this fool did everything too hastily, so he released all the fiery energy at once. The next few dozen attempts turned out to be exactly the same. It turned out to be not as easy as it might seem at first glance. A few hours later the guy was already completely black from smoke. He couldn't even imagine that drawing spells would be so dangerous. At some point, it dawns on him that he is not succeeding because he is doing everything too quickly. Right now, he must completely calm down and adjust his breathing. Chen should not forget about his main goal. He needs to save his little sister. But unfortunately, this time he failed to achieve success. The hero had already lost count of which attempt it was. The paper caught fire again. Only after 10 hours did he finally succeed. He was able to correctly redirect the energy from the scroll straight to a piece of paper. However, an inner voice said that this was still no good. Chen was furious. He had spent so much nerve and energy on this, which was not the case this time. The problem is that there is too little energy. He did not complete the work completely. Such a scroll will not be able to completely cure Linka. Although the guy was incredibly tired, when a snowflake appeared before his eyes, he went back to work. He shouldn't be offended by her. Chen once again takes the brush in his hands and will now make another attempt. He will not finish until he succeeds in the perfect spell. Events take us to the office of the director of the organization. Right now the hero has come to Paul with an important conversation. One of the guards did not allow him to pass, because this is not a place where boxers like him can simply come and go. But the guy came here with an important matter. Right now he urgently needs to talk with the director of the organization. This is a matter of life and death. But the men didn't care about this. According to their rules, no one could just walk into their boss's office. They argued for quite a long time, which created a huge amount of noise that could be heard inside the room. Paul became very angry because of this and asked in a loud voice what was happening outside. Right at that moment Chen walked inside. The guards tried to pull him back, but he threatened to sue them for mocking a wounded man. The director ordered the men to leave immediately. These idiots had already done enough. Now they could be free. Suddenly the hero meets the gaze of some girl unknown to him. She was lying on the sofa in the office as if nothing had happened. The guy was even a little embarrassed. He didn't expect that there was anyone else here besides Paul, but in principle it doesn't matter. The director finally asked him what important conversation he had to talk to him about. The man already had a lot of things to do. It turned out that the hero wanted to fight, but his fights were already planned. He still had to enter the ring 3 times as agreed. However, Chen said that he simply needed to get into the ring this week. A man's life depended on it. The director didn't even understand what he was talking about at first. Had the guy gone crazy? It was absolutely unacceptable to go into battle with such injuries. But the hero assures that everything will be fine. The man just needs to be given any match in which there will be an opportunity to win 150,000. At that moment Paul thought that this weirdo had just gone crazy. Maybe in the last fight he hit his head hard or something like that. However, such a situation was only to his advantage. He agreed to such conditions, so he will arrange such a fight in 3 days. At the same time, the director warns that if he is injured even more severely in this match, then there will be no complaints against him. After this, Chen leaves, and Bai Ji follows him with her gaze. Most likely the girl for some reason became interested in this guy. Chen walked along the corridor and thought of only one thing. In any case, he needed to win the upcoming fight. After that, he went to his sister's room. The hero sincerely asked the snowflake for forgiveness for the fact that he was never able to create the necessary scroll. It looks like now he will have to make the most difficult choice of his life. He would give everything in the world to save them both. But his little sister reassured him, he was not to blame for anything, she was ready to leave this world for the sake of her friend. The guy once again asked for forgiveness and promised that he would remember her for the rest of his life, because she was very dear to him. Snowflake was very happy that she had a brother like him. For the sake of her loved ones, she was also ready to sacrifice herself. Suddenly the phone rang. It was strange because Chen didn't have any meeting scheduled. It turned out to be Tang Jiang. He claimed that he knew very well about his sister's condition and knew how to help her. The man has already contacted specialists who can cure the girl. They should arrive in the country this week. The guy couldn't believe what he just heard. He was happier than ever, but he was warned that such services are quite expensive. At first, the hero was sure that he could cover any expenses, but it turned out that he needed as much as 150,000. However, there was no turning back. He still promises that he will find as much money as he needs. At the same time, the man promises to help in case of difficulties, but Chen replies that he has already done enough for him. The guy must cope on his own. Chen hung up the phone and jumped with happiness. Did his sisters really have hope for a happy life again? But there was still one problem. He earned 100,000 from the last fight. If we take away the expenses for treatment, then he had 50,000 left. Luckily he's already scheduled to fight for as much as 150,000 this week. He just needs to win once and everything will be fine. He also found a use for his scroll. Although it was imperfect, it could still be used for good. With the help of this piece of paper, he manages to completely heal his hand, and now he can properly prepare for the future match. The spell worked perfectly. The plaster could be removed immediately after use. Now everything depended only on it. Suddenly an inner voice asked him what he was going to do, because if he suddenly lost the upcoming battle, then everything would be lost. But the hero is confident in his abilities. He is a learning genius, and he has 3 whole days to prepare. He will definitely succeed. With the remaining money, Chen decides to buy special tonics to maximize his strength, but an inner voice warns that if his body cannot stand it, then he will be of no use. Within a few minutes the guy was standing at the checkout with a bunch of boxes. This should be enough. The cashier didn't even believe that he was really going to buy all this. Suddenly he heard a voice behind him. Someone was turning to Tang Jiang and asking the man if he had really come to buy medicine for himself again. As it turned out, this was exactly the same man who called the hero this morning. He was a special client here. Tang Jiang immediately notices the guy and calls his name. Chen is a little confused by this. The man was one of the participants in the fight club in the northern region. He had been watching the guy for a long time and was interested in his fighting skills.